When the demon king sought to destroy the world, a fated tragedy was set in stone. For heroes rose up to resist. Flames consumed their vows. The hero, Adela Helsinton, was clad in armor, but bore the star of a fall that was destined to be. The swordsman, Leonhard Gineet Piaet. His sword was fast, but not faster than the fate of his vanishing companions. The saint, Owen, his prayers could heal wounds, but not soothe the scars of memory. The mage, Rustful, his magic lit up the darkness, but could not illuminate a single ray of future hope. Among them, the hero Adela gave her life. She calmly looked back on that past. I saved my companions and gave up my own life. In the blaze, the hero's figure drifted like a falling leaf, burning out the last glimmer of light. It was a brutal battle. They finally defeated the Demon King. The price was the hero's eternal absence. But the story did not end. It just became crueler in a different way. The true protagonist of this legend is me. The blonde woman sat quietly upon the throne. In an empty conference room, a loud bang broke the silence. Crown Prince Leonhardt's hand slammed on the table. He glared. What did you just say? He turned to another noble, a duke. The blonde woman ignored the others. She met Leonhardt's gaze that I said, I object to building a statue for the hero, Adela Helsinton. There was not a trace of warmth in her voice. Her eyes were cold, as if stating a fact that had nothing to do with her, because that hero is me. My life ultimately became a heroic epic about saving the world, a typical coming-of-age adventure novel, a so-called failed work. This world treats its hero so dismissively. In this novel, I gathered companions, overcame heartbreak, defeated the Demon King, and met the most perfect ending. The Demon King unleashed his final power, letting out an arrogant roar, I will release all my power. A tiny human figure stood at the feet of the demon god, preparing to greet a long-forgotten victory. The Demon King issued his final curse. You will all perish with me. Specks of red text appeared before her eyes. Don't you dare touch my companions. This was the line the system had written for her. She lowered her gaze, still reading lines at a time like this. She raised her sword, her voice flat. Don't you dare touch my companions. Leonhardt roared in despair. Adela, what are you doing? At least you have to escape. Owen and Rustful also cried out in unison. Lady Adela, the Demon King, opened his arms. I will welcome you in hell. The cold command appeared again. Charge at the Demon King. There was no choice. She turned into a streak of light, rushing toward the center of destruction. Leonhardt let out a heart-wrenching C-R-Y-N-O. Adela, the light consumed everything. The world behind her fell into dead silence. Before I go back, I have to say one thing to that damn author. Being in the same world as you makes me sick. Let's never meet again. She fell into the void, carrying her final hatred for her fate. Leonhardt's mournful cry echoed through the heavens. Adela, the earth cracked. The hero had fallen. And just like that, I thought I could return to my original world. However, when I opened my eyes, an unfamiliar ceiling came into view. She was lying on a magnificent large bed. Everything was terribly wrong. She felt confused. Where is this? Her heart was empty. A small, soft hand was holding hers. She turned her head. A pink-haired girl was by the bed, her eyes full of worry. Your Grace the Duchess, you're awake. Should I call the butler? Adela looked at the strange girl. You are. The crimson text flashed again. A cage she thought she had long escaped. Coldly shake off the child's hand. Who allowed you into my bedroom? Her hand uncontrollably swatted away that tiny bit of warmth. The warmth was mercilessly pushed far away. A directive. She saw the line of text. Why can I still see this? The pink-haired. The girl recoiled in fear. Your Grace the Duchess, are you all right? Your face suddenly looks so pale. The girl shrank back, asking cautiously, are you sick again? The girl's voice was as soft as a mosquito's buzz. Strawberry rice cake. She tried to use her most precious thing to soothe a broken soul, but that soul could not respond. Adela covered her mouth. It's nothing. A sharp pain shot through her body. This unfamiliar body was already decayed and broken. What is this pain? Wasn't I supposed to shake off that hand? She gritted her teeth. Why did the punishment come so quickly? Do I have to obey all directives unconditionally? What on earth is going on? She repeated the directive. Who allowed you into my bedroom? Her voice was cold, as if it wasn't her own. The pink-haired girl cowered. That I was just worried about you. I'm sorry. The girl lowered her head. It's my fault. Another line of directive appeared. Annoyed, disappear at once. Adela spoke woodenly. Disappear at once. The The girl answered obediently, yes. She turned and left, her small figure disappearing beyond the door, leaving behind an irreplaceable void. Adela was silent. She got out of bed, her bare feet touching the cold floor. What is this? This familiar romance, novel style. I clearly saved my companions and gave my life according to the ending. If that's the case, I should have returned to my original world. Could it be that the novel isn't over yet? Impossible. She rushed to the mirror. The reflection in it startled her. This wasn't Adela's body. When I fell into darkness with the Demon King, I clearly saw the two words, the end. And what was that directive just now? Can I still summon spirits? She held on to a sliver of hope. She held out her hand. Light gathered in her palm. Undine. A stream of water swirled, and a petite water spirit appeared. The spirit circled in the air, calling out cheerfully, Adela, you're really still alive. This is great, Adela. Adela finally summoned me. Adela called the spirit's name, Undine. The spirit drew closer, staring at her face. Huh? The spirit's expression turned to confusion that you're not Adela. Adela closed her eyes wearily. It's been a while since I've heard such a racket. Undine's voice was full of suspicion and oh. But this magic is definitely Adela's. The spirit danced around her. Strange. So strange. Suspicious human. State your name. Adela sighed. Undine, it's really me, Adela. I seem to have been possessed. Undine was stunned. Possessed? You mean the art of soul transference? She suddenly grew weak, her body swaying. The spirit flew into a rage. Ha! You think I believe such nonsense? You despicable human. What did you do to our Adela? Adela closed her eyes, a hint of exhaustion in her voice. Didn't you once say that even if I swapped bodies with a beast, you'd still recognize me? I'm so disappointed. Undine, can you really not recognize me? At this point, she released a familiar and powerful magic. Light enveloped her, stinging Undine's eyes. The spirit felt the power, this magic. It's Adela's. Undine cried with Joy.It really is Adela. You're alive. She threw herself at her, nuzzling her cheek as if to make up for all the lost time. Adela held the small spirit, tears silently streaming down her face. Oh, be honest, I was always worried she'd be tricked somewhere. Undine, calm down. First, explain to me, what exactly happened after I perished with the Demon King? Undine looked bewildered. You don't remember? You were dragged underground with the Demon King. We thought you'd surely escape, but no matter how long we waited, you never appeared. Then suddenly, the magic from you was cut off. But why was I in the spirit realm? This is what the Spirit King said. He declared you were dead. The contract still exists because your soul is still wandering. But he said it was a special case. Humans are different from spirits. Without a body, it's the same as being dead. Undine's tears started to flow again. Oh, you have any idea how he felt? Watching you choose to die with the Demon King, Adela. Adela listened in silence. She couldn't answer. Why did you do that? Why did you choose death? Adela lowered her eyes. That was the original ending. I believed it was the only way to return to my world. But of course, she couldn't say such a thing. She apologized in a low voice that I'm sorry. She looked at the spirit in her hands. Maybe something else happened. Undine was in her hands. Adela speculated in a low voice, a great upheaval, something that could lead to the end of the world. Undine asked, puzzled, why would the world end? Adela's expression turned pained, because this is a novel and the original story has already ended. This was supposed to be an unchangeable fate. A cold blue text box unfolded before her. After part 1 ended, the story continues. Welcome to part 2. You are now the supporting character, Adrian Ifrit. More text appeared. The basic rules are the same as in part 1, but with additional conditions. Details will be provided later. The system issued a merciless proclamation. You have perfectly completed part 1. Please continue to do your best until part 2 is complete. Her world began to crumble. What? This cursed, failed novel actually has a part 2? She fell back as if struck by an invisible hand. Her last hope was utterly shattered. Crimson rage ignited within her. Her eyes turned cold, full of venomous resentment for that bastard, that damn author. The dream of 3 men and the nightmare of 1 woman thus began. Her eyes were cold, filled with a silent accusation against the unseen author. A directive echoed in her mind. Adrian, impeccably dressed as always, goes downstairs for breakfast. She let out a long sigh, filled with exhaustion and helplessness. This failed work actually has a sequel? Does this mean I have to stay here until it's over? She covered her face with her hands. When will that be? A sentence with no end. What if there's a part 3 after this? What am I supposed to do then? Undine circled around her, her voice full of worry. Adela, are you okay? She grabbed her own hair, screaming silently in her heart. Why aren't you looking at me? Why? The cold directive appeared again, ignoring her breakdown. Adrian, impeccably dressed as always, goes downstairs for breakfast. Adrian felt as if she were being controlled by invisible strings. She closed her eyes, tears streaming down, that I'm not going to pretend to be smart anymore. Just kill me. The directive turned into a red electric current, piercing her body, punishing her resistance. She let out a scream, her body convulsing violently. She fell to the ground, her body trembling uncontrollably. Undine circled her anxiously. Adela, are you okay? Adela. She curled up on the floor, fighting against the intense pain. That I'm used to this much pain, you rotten author. I won't dance to your tune. This time, I will not yield. This level of pain isn't enough, too. Her nose was bleeding. A trickle of blood ran down the corner of her mouth. The intense pain made her lose consciousness. Undine's scream echoed in the empty room. Adela. Her body fell heavily to the ground, silent. She lay on the ground, gasping in pain. Her body trembled uncontrollably. She barely propped herself up. This body was ridiculously weak. Thinking back to when she was a hero, even if she received punishment 2 or 3 times a day, she could endure it with willpower and recover quickly. What's worse, the pain I'm feeling now is more intense than when I was a hero. It feels like my heart is being torn apart. If I try to tough it out like in part 1, I'll really go into shock and die. A system notification box suddenly appeared. Special event. As a reward for your suffering in part 1, you will receive amazing benefits. First, you have become the most beautiful woman in the world. Second, you can still use your spirit and hero powers. Third, you have acquired a hidden ability. She roared, enough. I told you I don't need any of that. I just want to go back to how I was. She clutched her hair in agony. I just want to have an ordinary life again. Why is that so hard? The memories of that time were still clear, as if they happened only yesterday. Did you send such a big box again? I told you, I live alone. I can't eat this much. Really? But I'll eat it all. After all, you're the ones who raised me. A student from the countryside, barely getting by in the city on the money her parents sent. On that fateful day, without any warning, I was living my ordinary daily life, as usual. She was eating an apple. It tasted sweet. Her phone suddenly rang. Mom! The fork slipped from her hand and fell to the floor with a clatter. Then I opened my eyes and found myself inside a book in a noisy tavern. Everything had become strange and terrifying. My body suddenly started to glow. A welcome message appeared before my eyes. Welcome. You have become the protagonist, Adela Helsington. You can act freely, but at critical moments, you must follow the instructions. Directives are marked by stages. Stage 1, 100% freedom. Stage 2, 50% freedom. Stage 3, 5% freedom. The lower the freedom, the narrower the choices. Refusing a low freedom directive will result in punishment. She looked around. What the hell is this? The system prompt appeared again. Well then, good luck until the novel is finished. She muttered blankly. What? Where am I? Did I get drunk on soda? A voice interrupted her thoughts. Della, you have a visitor. Adela Helsington. And just like that, I was transported into this failed novel. Back to the present. She stood in the middle of the room, her long golden hair falling and hiding her expression. She muttered to herself, at least promise me this. She looked up, her gaze firm and cold, with a hint of a plea. When part 2 is over, you have to send me back. The system didn't answer, just repeated the cold directive. She sneered at Are you telling me to shut up and obey? Fine, let's see who wins. She took a step, determined to resist to the end. Her heart suddenly clenched. A sharp pain shot through her. She clutched her chest. Her heart felt as if it were being squeezed by an invisible hand. Every beat brought a tearing pain. She collapsed to the floor, gasping in agony. The directive flashed before her eyes, over and over, like a curse. Blood gushed from her mouth, splattering on the floor. She struggled that I can't pass out. Damn it, stay conscious. She fought against her body's collapse with all her might. The directive appeared again. Adrian, impeccably dressed as always, goes downstairs for breakfast. She gritted her teeth, sweat soaking her hair. Her body finally gave in. The system issued a new prompt. Complete part 2, and whatever you desire, your dream will come true. A promise she had long stopped believing. The system prompt sounded again. If your identity is exposed, this promise will be void. Exception: non-humans. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. So, I just need to complete part 2. No humans. That means I can't be discovered by humans. In other words, my former companions. The system seemed to have heard her thoughts. Subtitle: The final chapter. There is absolutely no part 3. Then let's officially begin. They even included a subtitle. She laughed at herself. So, it's just another repeat. But at least it's the same event. Maybe I can see their faces again. She recalled the old days, her hand resting on Leon Hart's head. Leon Hart looked displeased. Why are you touching my head? Do I look like a child? She replied with a smile. What? Am I too old to even get a compliment? Rustful said, so is that a good thing or a bad thing? I wonder how they're all doing now. A trace of nostalgia and a hint of bitterness intertwined in her heart. Adrian lay on the cold floor, a trickle of blood sliding from the corner of her mouth. All right, she whispered with her last ounce of strength. Just this once, I'll play along with you. Her body finally gave out. She fell backward, her consciousness fading with a final curse. Damn you, author. She opened her eyes. Her whole body was protesting. In this condition, I won't last long. She wondered, where's Undine? Undine, come out. Are you going to stand there forever? Undine peeked out from under the covers, timidly. Adrian said, you were muttering to yourself, laughing creepily, and trying to scare me. She recalled her breakdown earlier. She fell silent. I was making a fuss all by myself. So Undine must have been scared. Adrian laughed at herself. Haha, I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Adrian stroked Undine's head. Undine asked in a small voice, promise? She replied gently, I'm sorry for scaring you. By the way, how long have I been dead? After Adela died, Undine was immediately summoned to the spirit realm. Undine said, I'm not too sure. In human time, probably about 5 years. Adrian thought, that's not too long. Then maybe I can see my old companions. A glimmer of hope flickered in the endless darkness. In her memory, Leon Hart and Rustful were scuffling. Let go. You let go first. Owen shouted, you two, stop it, please. Anyway, it wasn't a happy ending for them either. I hope they're all doing well. She was startled from her memories. Undine, what should you do if someone calls for me? It'll be weird if I'm always talking to myself. Undine thought for a moment. Then I'll just go back to the spirit realm. The Spirit King is curious about you anyway. Goodbye, Adela. Undine vanished in a flash of water. Now then, let's start learning about this body's real owner. She rang the bell by her bed. A maid entered. You called for me, my lady? Are you going out now? Adrian said, going out? Yes, I should be going out. The maid replied, then I will wash your feet first. Pardon my intrusion, my lady. May I lift your foot? Adrian replied, all right. The maid knelt and carefully washed her feet with warm water and a towel. Does a maid always do this? I wouldn't know, because the only noble I was around was that guy, Leon Hart. The maid's hand accidentally touched her wound. She flinched in pain. The maid trembled with fear. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. A system directive appeared. Slap the maid. From today, you're in charge of cleaning the laboratory. Adrian thought, slap her for such a small thing? Are you crazy? A level 2 directive has 50% freedom. I just need to follow about half of it. She looked at the terrified maid, her voice cold. This cannot be overlooked. From today, you are in charge of cleaning the laboratory. The maid threw herself to the floor, kowtowing repeatedly. My lady, please spare me. Please, don't make me go to the laboratory. What on earth happened here? Adrian thought, what kind of place is this laboratory? And what's with this reaction? The maid cried out, my lady, please forgive me just this once. Adrian was silent, that it's hopeless. This body's owner has a terrible personality, but I can't reveal my identity. I have no choice. The system directive appeared again. Adrian takes the laboratory key from the small drawer by the bed and gives it to the maid. She said to the maid with a bitter smile, if you can last for 2 weeks, I will forgive you. Why is it always a level 3 directive? There's no freedom at all. Adrian said, if you can last for 15 days, I will forgive you. The maid took the key, trembling all over. I will go call another maid. I'm sorry. It's best not to do anything that the cunning author could find fault with. She sighed. A knock came from the door. My lady. Did you call for me? A very young-looking maid peeked her head in. Adrian said, I need to get ready. The maid lowered her head. Yes, my lady. For them, It wasn't a happy ending anyway. They couldn't even lift their heads. Their faces were so tense. The maid did her makeup. That it's done, my lady. Adrian must have kept her face tense as well. The woman in the mirror was cold and beautiful, without a trace of warmth. Am I going to a party today? The maid replied, please let the butler brief you on the detailed schedule. All right. The butler was pouring tea. She sat down at the table. Butler, what's on the schedule for today? The butler replied, there's a noble council meeting around noon. The location is the royal palace. Adrian asked, is it a meeting I must attend? Damn you, author. How can you suddenly call me to a meeting? I'm not prepared at all. The butler added, it is a meeting you do not have to attend. Adrian asked, what meeting? The butler explained, regarding what I mentioned before, building a golden statue of the hero, Adela Helsinton. She spat out her tea, puffed. The butler asked in alarm, my lady, are you all right? A system directive appeared. Stand up and state your thoughts. Prepare to attend the meeting immediately. She shot to her feet. Were you thinking? Prepare to attend the meeting immediately. The butler supported her. You haven't attended a noble council meeting in a long time. A duchess suddenly attending a meeting after a long absence is bound to be the center of a storm. Is it because of the third prince? Adrian asked who? Leon Hart, Ginete Piaet. The third prince is the one who proposed this agenda. The butler said, by the way, I will call for the carriage immediately after the meeting ends. Adrian replied, all right, let's do that. Adrian muttered under her breath, Leon Hart, what on earth are you thinking? A statue of me? In the grand hall of the palace. The meeting had already begun. That I'm late. Adrian walked into the grand hall. All eyes focused on her. People whispered, Duchess Ifrant. Hasn't the Duchess stopped coming to the palace? I heard her health has been poor for the last 5 years. This is all about me. I've arrived in person. But what should I do now? A voice rang out. If you're going to attend the meeting, hurry up and take a seat. She looked up and saw that familiar yet strange face. Leon Hart. He had changed, matured. There was a hint of melancholy in his brow that she had never seen before. Where did my fragile little prince go? A storm that could not be calmed raged in her heart. Leon Hart's voice rang out. The next proposal is to erect a statue of the hero Adela in the central plaza. The documents I've distributed detail the production process. Please review them. She sat quietly, listening to his steady voice. His voice has become deep and resonant. He's grown taller too. Just 6 years ago, he was that neglected third prince. Look at him now. He's a completely different person. Leon Hart continued. Now let's begin the vote. Those who object, please raise your hand. Adrian thought, wait, isn't this a meeting? Shouldn't we debate the pros and cons first? Everything had changed, become so strange, so distant. The hall was silent. A man cleared his throat, breaking the silence. She looked at the nobles present. Why is no one objecting? The budget is outrageous. Diamond-encrusted eyes, ruby-carved lips. Is this insane plan really going to pass? This is a waste of manpower and taxpayer money. Undine whispered, perfect. Leon Hart scanned the room. It seems there are no objections. Then the proposal passes unanimously. Adrian stood up, her voice not loud, but carrying clearly through the hall, I object. Leon Hart turned his head to look at her. What did you just say? She repeated, I said, I object. I cannot support this proposal. Her gaze was firm, without a hint of retreat, as if declaring war on the entire world. Leon Hart looked at her. State your reasons. Adrian said, first, the cost is too high. It's hard to believe this is just for a statue. This is no ordinary statue. Exactly, completely, which makes it a very inefficient choice. Leon Hart's voice carried a hint of mocking laughter. I ask that the best reason you can come up with. Adrian continued, I also question the subject itself. The Central Plaza is bustling with people. A place like that is more suited for smaller, scattered sculptures that can inspire art or goodwill without taking up the entire space. Leon Hart interrupted her. What you're saying is Adela Helsinton is not fit to be immortalized as a statue. His eyes turned cold, like a sharp sword piercing her heart. Adrian replied, it would just obstruct the flow of people. And besides, a system directive appeared. Who would appreciate something so grotesque? Leon Hart looked confused. Adrian broke out in a cold sweat and continued. Once it's completed, who would appreciate something so grotesque? Leon Hart looked at her, his gaze sharpening. The only one who objects is you, Duchess Ifrant, is that right? His voice was low, carrying a hint of imperceptible anger, as if a storm was about to break. Leon Hart announced. Then the proposal is passed by a majority vote. Adrian shot to her feet. Wait. The documents clearly state that a proposal requires unanimous consent to pass. Are we just going to toss the rules aside now? Leonhardt looked at her, Duchess Ifrant. If you wish, you can speak with me. He got up and left. She followed him. Did I mess something up? Adrian's heart was in her throat. She followed him into the garden. Leonhardt stopped and lit a cigarette, taking a deep drag. Then he slowly exhaled. Adrian watched him smoke. What if his asthma acts up again? As a child, Leonhardt had asthma, and his lungs were very weak. He would often cough uncontrollably. She would always ask with concern, Leon, are you okay? I've asked Undine and Sylph for help. You'll be better soon. Hang in there. He lowered his head and said softly, I'm sorry. She supported him. Leon, I don't want your apology. I want your thanks. He looked up at her. Thank you. She smiled. Don't mention it. They stood in the garden in silence, as if separated by an insurmountable chasm, unable to return to the past. Adrian thought, after all that trouble, I was worried about him, and here he is lighting a cigarette with his own hands. Adrian took a deep breath and said, Your Highness, please put out the cigarette. The smell is awful. Leonhardt looked at her. That's a strange thing to hear from a chain smoker like you. I heard that long-term smoking can cause asthma, so I quit. Leonhardt moved closer, blowing a puff of smoke in Adrian's face. He grabbed her hand. What are you doing? So what? If I get sick again, you'd probably be the happiest person. His words stabbed into her heart like a knife. Leonhardt coughed and threw away the cigarette. Leonhardt stamped out the cigarette, but it's surprising that the person who wished for me to have asthma would say something like that. Adrian covered her mouth and started coughing. Is their relationship really that bad? Adrian asked, Your Highness, did you and I have a falling out in the past? Leonhardt said, Cut the nonsense. Let's get to the point. Why did you attend the meeting? A system directive appeared. Stare at Leonhardt with an arrogant expression. How rude. You dare to disregard the authority of a duchess. Adrian thought, what on earth is going on? What happened in the 5 years I was gone that turned that kind person into a porcupine covered in spikes? Leonhardt said, Duchess Ifrant, I'm asking why you suddenly crawled out to start bothering me. Adrian stared at Leonhardt with an arrogant expression. You dare to disregard the authority of a duchess. After all, Leonhardt, Adrian said, you should have just stayed hidden in your mansion like before. You provoked me. A system directive appeared. You'd better watch your words, Your Highness. Without my help, you can't become the crown prince. To become the crown prince, he needed to make the representative of the nobility, Duchess Ifrant, his ally. Of course, now that I've possessed Adrian, I will unconditionally support Leonhardt. But why is he taking his anger out on me? He's a prince, and I'm a duchess. Right. Adrian's mind raced. This guy. I'll have to teach you proper etiquette again. Isn't a duchess someone that even the emperor can't ignore? The setting has collapsed. Author. Adrian turned her back, that you'd better watch your words, so that I can help your highness become the crown prince. Leonhardt watched her back. Stop saying things you don't even believe. His voice was filled with an unspeakable weariness and sorrow. Even without the duchess's help, I will achieve what I want with my own 2 hands. A system directive appeared. Did Adela Helsington leave a will before she died? By herself? Such a commoner's way of thinking. Adrian thought, what a despicable character I am. An arrogant noble wrapped in a sense of superiority. Adrian said, Did Adela Helsington leave a will before she died? By herself? Such a commoner's way of thinking. Adrian turned to leave. She sighed. He's really angry. Leonhardt watched her back, his eyes complex, anger, sadness, and a hint of unspeakable pain. Leonhardt grabbed her by the neck. Duchess Ifrant, aren't you curious why I hate you? Adrian pleaded weakly. Put me down. Leonhardt said, honestly, I'm not interested in being crown prince or anything. I don't care if you secretly support the first prince or the second prince. Of course, dealing with the assassins you sent was a bit of a hassle, but I don't hate you for something so trivial. The person who made Leonhardt so prickly was Adrian. Leonhardt continued, so think hard. Think about what you did to make me like this. Trembling in anxiety every moment, suffering for it. Adrian struggled, finding it hard to breathe. It was too difficult for an ordinary person to face such a deadly, killing intent. Spirits. She called on the power of the spirits. A soft light enveloped them. A system directive appeared. Complete part 2. And no matter what wish you make, your dream will surely come true. Warning, your identity has been discovered. Warning invalid. Exception, non-humans.my identity must not be exposed. She managed to choke out, please. Leon Hart released his grip. She collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. He looked at her, his eyes complex, as if looking at a stranger. Leon Hart's hand wouldn't stop shaking. Fragments of memory flooded his mind. A bloody battlefield. Leon Hart had fallen, blood staining his clothes. Adela cried out in panic, Leon Hart, are you okay? Leon Hart's vision blurred. Della, he kept calling her name. Leona, RT, Leon Hart, pull yourself together. Adela's voice was filled with despair and helplessness. Leon Hart slowly woke up. Adela. Adela's head shot up, overjoyed that you're awake. Thank heavens. Really, thank heavens. Leon Hart snapped out of his memory. He looked at his empty hands and gently clenched his fist. For a moment, that memory spoke to Leon Hart. I let her go. Leon Hart glanced at Adrian. Damn it, who is that woman? Suddenly remembering that moment, Leon Hart turned and walked away. Just 6 years ago, Leon Hart was nothing but a novice. The clash of sword and claw. He struggled among the monsters, every swing draining his strength. A giant axe fell. He dodged clumsily, life hanging by a thread. He finally fell to his knees. There was no one weaker than him in the expedition team, a burden destined to be forgotten. Sweat and blood mixed together. He looked up, only struggle remaining in his eyes. A cold blade pierced his body. A helpless cry was swallowed by the din of the battlefield. Every day was a desperate, bitter struggle. The slaughter would only stop when he was at death's door. His body fell among his companions, unnoticed. With his last breath, his lips turned to nothing. The world plunged into darkness, sinking into an abyss. In such extreme circumstances, in the crucible of death, he was forged again and again. And so, Leon Hart grew at a speed no one could match. He returned from hell, having become the undisputed strongest in the Empire. With a sword in hand, he was the Empire's strongest, the man known as the Swordmaster. Those who once scorned him now hastily avoided his gaze as if fleeing a disaster. But the starting point of it all was a woman's name, Adela. In every near-death moment, it was she who pulled him back from the abyss. That light was his only salvation. Leon Hart looked down at his empty hands. When I struggled, it was always she who held my hand. He raised his eyes to the Adrian before him. She was kneeling at his feet, her posture humble and pained. How could I have mistaken this woman for Adela? Adrian, that hand in a blue glove rested on the green grass. A hand that had never held a sword. A face that had never known hardship. Leon Hart slowly stood up, his back to her, as if rejecting a ridiculous dream. Adrian sat where she was. How absurd. Leon Hart walked away alone, his red cape separating two worlds. He lit a cigarette, the smoke blurring his face. How could I have mistaken her for Adela? That memory churned in his eyes, lingering like smoke. I must be crazy to miss her this much. Adrian's voice echoed from the past. Your Highness, please face reality. The throne is but a fantasy for you. Marrying into the ducal family is the wise choice. In the empty bedchamber, Adrian sat alone by the bed, quietly watching Leon Hart on the bed. Those words were a shackle he could not escape. I will take care of it, Your Highness. You just need to remain silent. This is your only way out. The door closed gently. In the empty room, only Leon Hart was left on the bed. He lay on the bed. Just as Lady Ifrit said, is marrying into her family really a better fate? A tear slid from the corner of his eye. He clutched the sheets beneath him. His voice was unheard in this palace. A loveless marriage might be my only hope. Inside the magnificent hall, candlelight flickered. A maid asked Adrian in a low voice, has the third prince given his answer? Adrian, her back to the maid, spoke in a cold and certain tone. When his most trusted friend betrays him, when his last supporter leaves him, the third prince will have nowhere to go but to my family. She turned her head, a calculating smile on her lips. He will have no choice but to crawl before me. The maid's voice came from behind her. Are you really sure about the third prince, my lady? Adrian didn't turn back. Have you forgotten my reason for choosing the third prince? It's because of his asthma. Outside the door, a figure stood quietly. Leon Hart. He heard that cold voice that it's because of his asthma. The maid's words followed. You chose him without hesitation because he will die soon. Adrian sneered. Good, you remember. Outside the door, Leon Hart's fists clenched silently. Those words were a pre-written death sentence. That woman had ruined his entire childhood. She manipulated everyone, pushing him into countless torments, countless humiliations. He was just a sacrificial offering for all to see. His only allies were destroyed by that woman's own hands. His life was nothing more than a pawn on her chessboard. To her, he was just a tool to continue the family bloodline, a soulless necessity. The mere sound of her voice was nauseating. He would rather rush to the battlefield to fight the Demon King, rush to a death from which there was no return, than endure it for another moment. A voice echoed in his memory, Leon Hart's voice, "I would rather die than marry the Duchess's daughter." He looked up at the sky, despair like an endless rain. Adrian looked at Leon Hart, a hint of concern in her tone that I heard that long-term smoking can cause asthma. Leon Hart stood silently in the garden. He violently crushed the cigarette between his fingers. The ember died. Maybe I should just end it all like this. No, not yet. Just as he made up his mind, Adrian, beside him, suddenly collapsed. Her body slammed heavily against the cold fence. That facade of composure shattered in an instant. The butler, holding a candlestick, blocked the small figure at the door. "Young miss, you've come again today. Please return to your room now. You must sleep early to grow tall." Piaet lowered her head, her voice as soft as a mosquito's buzz, "But I want to see the Duchess." The butler explained gently, "The Duchess is thinking of you too, young Mississippi. But as I told you, she is ill and cannot see anyone." Piaet pleaded, "Please, just for a moment." The butler shook his head. "You know you cannot enter the Duchess's room without permission. Just a few days ago, you were scolded for this very reason." Piaet was at a loss for words, only able to repeat, but. Adrian lay in bed, letting out a faint sigh. Her forehead was damp, her face pale. Her fragile body was on the verge of breaking. Piaet's voice rang out again, with the courage of a final gamble that I want to see her. "It's okay if I get scolded." The butler looked at her and finally softened. "All right, young miss, you must come out after just one look." The heavy door let out a heavy creak and slowly opened. Piaet walked to the bedside, her small figure looking even more lonely before the huge sickbed. She smiled shyly. "This is nice. Duchess, if Piaet blows on you, the pain will go away." She leaned forward and blew gently. Adrian looked at her. "This child is actually quite cute." Piaet chanted a child spell. "Pain, pain, go away." A gentle light shone, enveloping a cold heart. Sunlight streamed into the duchy. A long night had passed. A basin of clear water reflected the morning light. Adrian slowly sat up, touching her forehead. The heaviness of yesterday was completely gone. Yesterday I was sick enough to die, but my body feels as light as a lie. That warm light. Did Piaet heal me? She opened her eyes. An incredible thought emerged. Piaet's true identity is the saintess, a child blessed by God. Her very existence is a miracle that this isn't an adventure fantasy drama, but a child care story. The fate she had so carefully planned was completely rewritten by a child's innocence. Do you think making a baby the protagonist will be a hit? Piaet clung tightly to that small figure. What did I do wrong? How many years are you going to trap me here? A vision of the future flashed by. An elderly Adrian in a wheelchair and a grown-up Piaet point 15 years? 20 years. I'm going crazy. I can't do it. A system prompt appeared. Congratulations on discovering the genre of Part 2. A characteristic of childcare stories is that you wake up and several years have passed. Don't forget, as long as you work hard, time can be shortened. Adrian pondered, come to think of it, the childcare stories I've read were like this too. But the gears of fate would not turn smoothly because of this. Even if it doesn't take decades, not all problems can be solved. Although the protagonist is young, her power is too great. But divine power is not omnipotent. It can only heal external wounds, not eradicate diseases. But Piaet healed me. A child's kindness had become the heaviest secret. Once this fact becomes known, countless greedy eyes will focus on Piaet. She will become a tool. She lowered her head, a silent sigh escaping her lips. The bedroom door was suddenly pushed open. The butler walked quickly to his master. He looked at her with concern. Her fever seemed to have subsided. Is there anywhere else you feel unwell? Adrian shook her head. That I'm fine. The maid also chimed in. Your complexion is indeed much better. The butler remained worried. Albert, the doctor said it would take a week to recover. To recover so quickly, it must have been a misdiagnosis. The butler bowed to apologize. That I'm sorry. I will dismiss Dr. Albert immediately. Adrian interrupted him. Why dismiss the doctor? She sat up straight. That I also need to send a letter of protest to the royal family. The butler was somewhat confused. He cautiously asked his master, "Did you see the culprit?" Adrian shook her head. "I don't know." The butler sighed. "You don't remember at all?" Adrian said, "I told you. I don't know." The butler continued, "Then I'm afraid it will be difficult to catch the criminal." He turned to the maid. "Luna, explain the situation to the master." The maid replied respectfully, "Yes, head butler." But Adrian waved her hand. "It's fine, I wasn't seriously injured." The butler and the maid were both stunned. "What?" She said lightly, "When I fell, my memory completely disappeared. Let's just let this matter go." Adrian thought, "If I formally pursue this, Leon Hart will be in trouble. I'll be in trouble myself." She chose the lie that was most advantageous to her. The butler couldn't understand. "You don't plan to use this as an excuse to demand compensation from the royal family?" His original plan was easily overturned by her. Adrian looked blank. The butler imagined the reaction she would have originally had. Accuse someone she dislikes of inciting the nobles. That would be more like that scheming villainess. He looked at the Adrian before him. "What kind of person are you, really?" Adrian replied faintly, "I'm saving it for later, for greater gain. Sometimes patience is necessary." The butler bowed deeply, as expected. "Then I will completely silence the witnesses. I will ensure this matter is not leaked." An old man's world was thus overturned by Adrian. Adrian looked at the maid. Luna, if there's anything you want, tell the butler." Luna was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. "Really? I just did what I was supposed to do." Adrian's gaze sharpened. "How dare you disregard the reward I'm giving you?" Her tone allowed no argument, carrying an innate authority. Luna quickly bowed, and "Oh, of course not. I will think about it carefully and then tell you." "Thank you very much." Adrian ordered, "I've worked up a sweat. Prepare a bath." She watched Luna's departing figure, lost in thought. Luna froze on the spot, her body trembling slightly with excitement. Adrian cleared her throat, but Luna spun around abruptly, a look of disbelief on her face. "I'm sorry. What did you just say? Could you say it again?" The butler reminded her from the side. "The master asked you to prepare her bath." Only then did Luna come to her senses. "Yes, I understand." Adrian turned her face to the side. "That I thought you had something to say. Was I mistaken?" She was no longer a pawn to be manipulated, but a true player of the game. The butler withdrew. Adrian remained in the room. She looked at herself in the mirror. "Did I scrape my face and elbow when I fell? There should have been wounds, but now it's completely smooth. It must be Piaet's power. It healed my body." Owen is the only priest who can heal an entire body with a single prayer, whereas ordinary clergy must exert their divine power by chanting prayers. The more wounds there are, the more times the prayer must be repeated. The deeper the wound, the longer the prayer. Piaet, she is too young and kind. She cannot bear this power, cannot distinguish between good and evil, and cannot resist being used. A single misstep and she will be devoured. Protecting this child, not letting her be swayed by the outside world. The role of a companion will be crucial. For the first time, a genuine gentleness appeared in Adrian's eyes. Adrian ordered the butler, "Prepare a report on Piaet. I need to confirm some things." The butler replied respectfully. The next morning at breakfast, Adrian walked into the dining room. Piaet was sitting at the table, taking small bites of her food. Only the two of them were at the long dining table. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. Adrian looked at the child. What was her relationship with Adrian? They weren't rivals, were they? Piaet mustered her courage. Your Grace the Duke, are you not in pain anymore?" Adrian raised her eyes. "That I'm fine now. You don't need to worry." Her voice was calm, yet carried an unquestionable strength. Piaet said in a small voice, "I heard you were sick last time." Adrian looked at Piaet. The child was secretly checking her complexion. How cute. A system prompt appeared. Call her name coldly. Question Piaet if she was eavesdropping. Go back to your room and reflect immediately. She heard her own voice, cold and unfamiliar. Go back. Piaet looked up, her eyes filled with tears. Adrian froze. Here, the girl's cheeks were stuffed full, like an innocent hamster. Adrian screamed silently in her heart, "You lunatic! A child has to eat." That formless voice was a fate she could not resist. Adrian sat upright in her chair, her expression indifferent. "I'm sorry," Piaet, "but the instinct for survival is paramount. If I don't live to see the end, it's all over. It's better to be safe." She spoke, her voice cold. "Piaet, eavesdropping is nothing to be proud of. Go back to your room and reflect." Piaet's eyes instantly turned red. "I'm sorry, Your Grace." She lowered her head, her voice choked with sobs. Piaet will never, ever do it again. Adrian's gaze turned sharp, like a cold blade stabbing toward the small figure. Piaet trembled all over, fear spreading in her eyes. She slid down from her chair and silently turned to leave. Her small back was filled with grievance and sorrow. Adrian looked at her. Piaet, where are you going? Piaet's voice trembled. The tea on my room. Adrian's voice sounded again. Who told you to go now? Finish your meal slowly. Take a walk in the garden and come back at bedtime. Piaet was stunned. The servants also looked at each other, whispering among themselves. Adrian looked at them. You wouldn't be so heartless as to refuse even this, would you? She chose the only shred of gentleness in the script, giving the middle finger to that voice in her heart. What a detestable author. She said to Piaet, sit down. Eat while it's hot. Piaet quickly sat back in her chair, yes. She looked at the food on her plate, tears glistening in her eyes, and carefully picked up her knife and fork. Adrian watched her, but her mind was on something else. It was a much grander plan, a plan that could change everyone's destiny. Adrian leaned back in her chair. I'm full. The dining room was unusually quiet. It wasn't just that maid who acted strangely. Everyone in this mansion seemed to fear Adrian. She wasn't close to Piaet either. Adrian wondered, has she ever genuinely smiled? In such a cold environment, what joy could her life have? A knock sounded at the door. The butler's voice came through. Master, Miss Piaet's report is complete. Adrian sat up straight. Come in. The butler, holding a tray, handed her the report. Adrian opened the file, a flash of surprise in her eyes. The family's ward, Piaet, has been officially registered as the family's ward. The guardian is Adrian. Adrian looked at the report. She actually decided to sponsor someone. It's not like her, and it was 5 months ago. What made her change her mind? She looked at the words on the document. She's 5 years old. Her birthday is coming up soon. 5 nobles had previously sponsored her on a regular basis. Many families hoped to adopt Piaet, but the orphanage director refused them all. It wasn't until she was 3 that an adoption permit was approved. Marquis Moulton adopted her. It was a family with a good reputation, with only one 7-year-old daughter. The adoption record was only 3 lines long. Everything after that was completely erased. The records only resumed when she was 4. Adrian put down the report. Is this all? She looked at the butler. What about the records from age 3 to 4? The butler replied, she was adopted during that time, so there are no records. Adrian frowned. This is all the information? She is not an ordinary child. She is the legally recognized ward of this family. The butler explained that we sent agents to contact the household staff, but we failed every time. They seemed to possess unshakable loyalty. Adrian's gaze turned cold. She placed the report on the table. Butler, I'm not interested in excuses right now. The butler immediately bowed his head. My deepest apologies. I will immediately submit a request to the Intelligence Guild. Adrian picked up the report again, a complex emotion flashing in her eyes. She must have suffered some kind of trauma during that year. That blank record is an untouchable mystery. After the relationship was severed, she suffered from aphasia for a year. She was also diagnosed with enuresis. Her personality also changed significantly. The aphasia developed into a severe stutter. Signs of clinical depression appeared. It wasn't until she was officially registered as a ward of the Affronte family that her life took a turn for the better. Adrian looked at the report in her hand. Nowhere was it recorded that Piaet had healed anyone. Why are the records after the relationship was severed so chaotic? It's as if she was abused in that family. The butler came in. Master, the academy has recommended Miss Piaet for admission again. This is their second inquiry. How should we respond? Adrian asked, when was the first inquiry? The butler replied, they sent the admission application right after she was registered as the family's ward. Adrian mused, Piaet is almost 6, yet there's no record of any formal education. She looked at the butler. You remember why her admission was postponed at the time? The butler replied, you did not give a specific reason. Can a 5-year-old go to school? Adrian asked. The butler explained, applications are now accepted from age 5. When you attended, the minimum age was 17. It has been lowered significantly now. So Adrian was also a student at the academy. Adrian asked, what is the academy like now? Is it any different from when I was there? The butler replied, its prestige has greatly increased. Now, almost all noble heirs living in the capital will enroll. It's an excellent opportunity to build connections from a young age and establish ties with the royal family. family. Most of the factions supporting the crown prince are divided based on acquaintances from the academy, except for the third prince, who dropped out. Adrian asked, "Was I on good terms with the third prince?" The butler replied, "You were very interested in him. You wanted to know his every move." A fragment of memory flashed by. A young Adrian holding a telescope, hiding behind a window, and monitoring a boy. The boy seemed to sense something and hugged his arms uneasily. Adrian was stunned, but that's practically an obsession, isn't it? She looked at the document in her hand, a complex emotion flashing in her eyes. She seemed to see a figure imprisoned in a golden birdcage, and she herself was the one holding the chain. The butler continued. She was particularly interested in the third prince's personal relationships, even setting aside time every day to listen to reports. Adrian was surprised. Every day, in her memory, the butler recited, "Today the third prince ate cake 3 times, steak 4 times, and went to the bathroom twice." Even after the third prince left the academy, she monitored him. Adrian said, "Monitored." At that time, there were rumors that the third prince's asthma was so severe that he would soon die. The master ordered me to establish contact with the servants at the third prince's residence. Adrian asked, "How long did I do that?" The butler replied, "Until the third prince voluntarily joined the expedition to subjugate the demon king. About 12 years. If the third prince hadn't joined the expedition back then, he would have become our family's son-in-law by now. 12 long years of harassment." Adrian clenched her fists. No wonder Leonhard hated Adrian to the bone. Having left the academy, Leonhard had no choice but to build connections in other ways. But how could he build friendships when he could barely stand due to his asthma? This explains why he is still competing with the other princes even after defeating the Demon King. I thought the problem would be solved with my support, but who would accept help from a stalker? No wonder Leonhard, who was even weak in swordsmanship, volunteered for the expedition. At the time, I thought the powerless third prince was forced to join. But it turns out he volunteered because he didn't want to marry Adrian. Was his swordsmanship really that bad? Adrian looked at Leonhard in the training ground. He swung his sword, determination shining in his eyes that I will prove myself again. There's no turning back. From now on, I have no choice but to avoid Leonhard as much as possible. A system prompt appeared. Third stage. Rubbing her brow wearily, request an observation class at the academy. Adrian gently rubbed her brow and said, "I request an observation class at the academy." The butler asked, "Does the master intend to observe in person?" A system prompt appeared. "Do you think a student of the Affronte family can be casually entrusted to others?" Adrian looked at the butler. You think a student of the Affronte family can be casually entrusted to others? The butler lowered his head. It was my misjudgment. If you tell me which class you would like to attend, I will go and confirm if it's possible to participate as an observer. The system prompt appeared again. Say with a disdainful look, "If I tell you the class in advance, you'll prepare beforehand." Adrian thought, why is the author being so cooperative today? Is the academy really that important to the plot's development? She said to the butler, "If I specified the class, wouldn't you prepare in advance? Find a way for me to attend without specifying a class." The butler replied, "I will inform you as soon as possible." The system prompt appeared again. "What is Piaet doing now?" Adrian asked again, "What is Piaet doing now?" The butler replied, "She felt weak after her meal and developed a fever. Her lessons have been canceled, and she is resting." Adrian thought, "She's sick." A system prompt appeared. How dare she postpone her lessons? What insolent behavior. Adrian stood up. How dare she postpone her lessons? A system prompt appeared. The butler must have spoiled her. That's why she's become such a brat. Adrian thought, "Have you called the doctor?" The butler replied, "Yes, but he hasn't arrived yet." A system prompt appeared. "Tell him to come to the dining room immediately." Adrian suppressed her anger. "This thing is driving me crazy." She yelled at the butler, "Tell him to come to the dining room immediately." The butler bowed his head. "Yes, master." Meanwhile, Piaet lay in bed, a maid taking care of her. "Miss, the ice pack has melted. Let me change it for you." Piaet trembled. "Cold, so cold." The maid comforted her. "It's because of the high fever. I'll take it off in a little while. Please bear with it a bit longer." Piaet mumbled, "Yes, Piaet can do it." The maid looked at her. "The young miss is truly admirable." The maid said softly, "Miss, I'll bring you some soup. Please wait a moment." She closed the door. leaving Piaet alone in the dim room. Memories flooded back like a tide. When she was even younger than now, Piaet was the cutest child in the orphanage. She rarely cried and was always smiling. So, nobles interested in adoption would always take an interest in Piaet first. There were even nobles who sponsored Piaet. The orphanage director was reluctant to let her go. Finally, at the age of 3, Piaet was adopted by a couple. They were the orphanage's biggest donors. What a beautiful child. Like a doll. Be a lovely little sister to our daughter. Take good care of her, Piaet. Piaet hugged her teddy bear, smiling innocently. But a year later, the Marquis and his wife rejected Piaet. The reason was that Piaet had scratched their daughter's forehead. After returning to the orphanage, Piaet couldn't speak properly. It took a year before she started to say a few words, but they were still mumbled. That was when Adrian came to the orphanage. Her face was pale. Piaet hid behind a tree, secretly watching her. She looks so sad, maybe because she's not smiling. I really want to see her smile. Hey you. Piaet jumped in surprise. Adrian asked, do you want to come with me? The orphanage director said, Duchess, that child. Piaet stammered, I don't speak clearly. I don't know how to read either. The director added, Duchess, there are other children. You better look inside. Adrian interrupted him. I don't even expect her to know how to read. She looked at Piaet. Tea doesn't matter if you can't speak. I understand everything. Will you come with me or stay in this filthy place? The decision is yours. Piaet thought, I want to go with you. Is that okay, Duchess? Adrian said, of course. Adrian was a very strict person. In particular, she detested any behavior that lacked dignity. After the adoption, they rarely met because Adrian almost never left her bedroom. She never said a single warm word. Her body was always tense, as if in pain. The bedroom was too big to sleep in alone. It was scary. But she liked the effronté mansion. She also liked the serious butler and the short-haired maid. Most of all, she liked the Duchess. Good morning. Duchess, Adrian said, good morning. Walk quietly and carefully. Piaet smiled and replied yes. Although she criticized everything, she never commented on the Duchess's way of speaking. Adrian asked, what are you smiling about? Piaet replied, nothing. I just really like. A gasp slowly rose. A heavy groan escaped from her dry lips. A searing pain shot through her small body. It hurt so much. A tear finally broke free from the corner of her eye, sliding down silently. Only a suppressed sob. I can't cry out loud. Crying is a bad thing. If they find out, they might kick me out. The mansion in her memory was cold and grand. She stood outside the gate alone, holding a small suitcase. Those blurry and indifferent figures were a lingering nightmare that I want to stay here. I don't want to be abandoned again. Suddenly, a cool sensation. A hand gently rested on the girl's forehead. What is this? It's so cool. Like a pulsing drop of water. It feels very comfortable. The burning pain gradually faded. Piaet's brow smoothed out. In a daze, Adrian's figure was gentle and blurry. But who is she? With a soft sigh, Piaet slowly opened her eyes. That hand wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. This hand feels completely different from my sister's. Softer, more slender, and cooler. Who are you, sister? Why won't you answer me? Adrian watched her quietly. Piaet's steady breathing could be heard. A day later, Piaet's body had fully recovered. She held a book, her face full of small anticipation. I get to dine with the Duke today, right? Two maids walked in. They were carrying a tall stack of dinner plates. Excuse us, Mississippi. A white tablecloth was spread over the long, ornate table. Sunlight danced on the exquisite tableware. One by one, beautiful dishes were carefully served like works of art. Footsteps were heard outside the door. Adrian walked in, surrounded by servants. Piaet looked up in surprise. The Duke. Why did the Duke come to my room? Piaet thought with a stutter, but this is my bedroom. Adrian sat down at the table, her tone flat. So what? There's no place in my mansion that I cannot go. The girl's eyes instantly lit up. Oh, he knew this was my room. That's why he came. Piaet looked at the salad in front of her. I really want to drink this soup, but I don't want to eat anything cold right now. But according to the dining order, I have to start with the salad. Adrian put down her knife and fork. The salad isn't fresh. Take it away. A maid took the plate away. Piaset's eyes quietly brightened. Great. But what should I do now? Do I have to wait for them to bring a new salad? For today, it's fine to start with the soup. Next, I want to eat the pie, but I'm a little embarrassed in front of the Duke. Adrian elegantly raised her hand. She pointed to a dish. Move this one further away. I don't like it. A maid responded respectfully. A piece of pie suddenly appeared in front of Piaet. The girl was stunned. Huh? But it doesn't smell bad at all. Piaet suddenly realized something. In the past, whenever the Duke disliked something, the food would be immediately taken away. He had never just asked for it to be moved. The small pie was brought to her mouth. The sweet taste melted on her tongue. At the long dining table, two people ate in silence. In a magnificent room, there was only the light clinking of knives and forks. After the meal, Adrian and Piaet sat together. She spoke softly. Piaet, do you remember I was sick a few days ago? The girl nodded. Do you know who cured me? Piaet's finger touched her lower lip. Was it Albert, that old doctor? Adrian was lost in thought. I see. It seems she doesn't know she has healing powers. Have you heard of the academy? Piaet shook her head and it's a place where you study with friends. You can meet many people your age. A glimmer of longing flashed in the girl's eyes. Adrian asked gently, do you want to go? Piaet fell silent. The light in her face dimmed. You don't want to go? Adrian pressed on that's not it. Piaet shook her head hastily. She clutched her skirt, her voice trembling. If I go there, does that mean I can't come back? Adrian was slightly taken aback. What a strange question. She looked at the girl reassuringly. The place you live is the Affronte estate, not the academy. Of course you'll come back. The gloom was swept away. Light rekindled in Piaet's eyes. Then I want to go. I want to try. Adrian smiled. Good. A maid came forward, holding a gift box. Miss Piaet, please accept this. It's a gift to celebrate your recovery. The box was full of cookies. 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 Piaet's breath hitched slightly. She just stared quietly at the maid. Smiling, Adrian turned to leave. Could it be that the Duke prepared this for me? She hugged the gift box, her cheeks slightly flushed, or was it a gift from the butler? In the past, he always had the maids bring me things. In her memory, a maid put a finger to her lips and lowered her voice. The butler asked me to give this to you. It's a secret. The light in Piaet's eyes dimmed. That's right. Why would the Duke prepare cookies for Piaet? Then why was he so gentle today? Even his cold gaze and thorny tone seemed different. The Duke was the same as always, but why did he seem like a different person today? The girl hugged the gift box in her arms, an unfamiliar flower quietly blooming in her heart. After Piaet fully recovered, 2 more peaceful days passed. Adrian observed her quietly. After a few times, a thought became clear. This child is completely unaware of her own power. Piaet tilted her head, her fingertip tapping her chin, revealing pure confusion. She doesn't even know what a saint is. Perhaps she needs a companion to awaken her. Adrian's thoughts drifted. She seemed to see a story, a protagonist who builds bonds at the academy and then awakens magnificently in the face of a world crisis. Looked up to by her companions, steadfastly protected, reaching out a hand and making a vow. Adrian sighed softly. Another one of these cliches. She felt a silent weariness. Adrian opened her palm. A stream of water gathered, swirling gently at her fingertips. Undine. Undine stood with her hands on her hips, pouting. What do you mean, calling me only now? Adrian turned around, a hint of helplessness in her tone. Why are you angry? Undine's voice was full of grievance. You always summon me when you need something and ignore me when you don't. She became agitated, splashing water everywhere. That's so mean. Am I that insignificant? You idiot. Cold water droplets hit her face. Adrian raised a hand to shield herself that I was just too busy. I was afraid you'd be bored if I summoned you. Undine retorted loudly. Even if I'm so bored my body starts a knot, you have to call me. Adrian finally surrendered. All right. I'll listen to you. So please calm down. Only then did Undine retract the water, huffing with a touch of pride. I'll forgive you this time. Adrian said helplessly. Thank you, Undine. The room returned to calm. Adrian requested softly, Undine, can you hide yourself in front of others? It'll be troublesome if your spirit aura is detected. Undine tilted her head, puzzled. Why would it be troublesome? Adrian's gaze became serious. Leon Hart will definitely recognize your aura. So will Rustful and Owen. Her hand tightened slightly over her chest. I absolutely cannot reveal my identity right now. I know this disappoints you, but please, you must hide. Undine's voice lowered. But do you know how devastated Leon Hart was after Leon died? He cried all day, numbed himself with alcohol, and even wanted to follow him in death. It wasn't just Leon Hart. Owen and Rustful were the same. All of them lost their minds. Painful memories shrouded Adrian like a shadow. Undine's voice held a hint of hope. How happy would they be if they knew Assel was still alive? Even if you have to keep it a secret from other humans, at least tell your friends. They're truly pitiful. The line of Adrian's profile tints that I've said it before. No one can know my identity. She suddenly fell to her knees, her long golden hair cascading down. Undine floated closer, her face filled with confusion. Your identity as Assel. Is that the secret? Adrian knelt on the floor, her voice weary but firm. If my possession is discovered, it will be undone. Undine floated in the air. Soul transfer magic has that kind of restriction. Undine tilted her small head to him. This is the first I've heard of it. Her gaze sharpened. Are you hiding something from me? A sense of pressure emanated from Undine's body. If I find out later, you'll be in for it. I'm giving you a chance now, so confess. Adrian lowered her eyes in silence. She looked up, meeting Undine's gaze, her voice tinged with self-mockery. Since you're so suspicious, why don't I just reveal my identity to everyone? I'm also curious if the possession will be undone, and if I'll die again. Undine froze instantly. She shot forward to Adrian's face, her small body almost touching the tip of her nose, silently conveying her shock. Undine deflated. She reluctantly floated away. TCH. Fine. Adrian's gaze softened. Oh, I need to explain it to the other spirits as well. Undine immediately regained her energy. Understood. Adrian stood up and walked toward the door. I'm going out now. If you sense anything unusual, notify me through telepathy. She paused, adding a final instruction. Pay special attention to anyone who approaches Piaet. Understood. Undine crossed her arms confidently. That cute human? Leave it to me. In the courtyard, a magnificent carriage waited quietly, ready for an important meeting. Piaet's eyes sparkled, her cheeks slightly flushed. Good day, Your Grace the Duke. A cold system prompt sounded. Look Piaet up and down. Replace the person in charge of Piaet's legion. Adrian's heart was unperturbed. It's only the first stage. I don't have to follow it. She said to the butler, give a reward to the person in charge of Piaet's legion. The butler was slightly taken aback. What did you say? Adrian shot him a sharp glance. The butler immediately lowered his head. Yes, I will do as you say. Adrian turned. Then let's go. Luna, come here. The maid replied respectfully, yes, my lady. The carriage slowly drove away. The old butler watched the departing figure. Sunlight pierced through the clouds, gilding the magnificent academy. Piaet lifted her small face, her eyes reflecting the spectacular sight. Wow, the academy was located within the empire, and only the children of nobles residing in the capital were eligible for admission. For this reason, countless local nobles had moved here. Adrian's party stood quietly, the carriage waiting behind them. She looked at the building before her. Every time she saw it, she was still moved. A gentle voice came. The last time we met was 2 years ago, wasn't it? Have you been well? The headmaster approached, a friendly smile on his face. Welcome to the academy, Duke Affronte. Adrian extended her hand. That it's been a while, headmaster. Adrian was composed. He probably thought I would be flustered, but I've already gathered all the information. This old man's name is Oswald Franklin, an expert-level mage and the headmaster of this academy. The headmaster smiled sincerely. I heard you made an important decision for the academy. On behalf of the academy, I thank you. This frankness made her momentarily think of Rustful. A familiar warmth brushed past her heart. Adrian adjusted her thoughts that I heard about it from my butler, but I'm still not sure if this is the right choice. The headmaster continued gently. As you know, our academy has the best faculty and top-tier facilities. We only cultivate a few elites. The headmaster continued, if you donate, you will not regret it. Adrian's gaze went past him. Of course. That's not what I'm curious about. She raised an unexpected question. Will the magic arena maintain the same architectural style as the main building? Her pride as an apprentice architect would not allow for any ambiguity on this point. The headmaster was taken aback for a moment. Naturally. Adrian gave a satisfied smile. Very good. I will make the donation. The headmaster was overjoyed. Oh, your grace, you are truly generous. Adrian turned to her side. This is Piaet Affronte, the child I sponsor. She placed her hand gently on Piaet's shoulder. The headmaster's eyes lit up. What a lovely young lady. I have never seen someone who suits a pink dress and hairstyle so well. Adrian thought, such a flatterer. But I'm in a good mood. It seems our tastes are somewhat similar. Piaet's voice trembled slightly. Hello, are you the headmaster? Her cheeks were colored like flower petals. The headmaster bent down gently. No need to be so nervous. Piaet asked nervously, hello, headmaster. He smiled and suggested, how about calling me Grandpa? Piaet's cheeks flushed. She clasped her hands together and called out softly, Grandpa. The headmaster smiled with satisfaction. Yes, just like that. Would you like to tour the academy with Grandpa? The headmaster spoke again. That you're worried Piaet might fall, aren't you? Would you like to hold Grandpa's hand? We can walk together. The girl's body stiffened slightly. Piaet looked up at Adrian. She spoke with some unease. Duke. Adrian gave her permission. Go on. Hold his hand. Piaet's eyes instantly lit up. She nodded vigorously, yes. Piaet's small hand was placed in the large, warm one. The headmaster said softly, thank you, Piaet. The two walked towards the academy in the distance. The headmaster looked back at Adrian and said, Duke, I will take you to the headmaster's office. The group arrived indoors. Undine circled in the air. She sent a message to Adrian. That old human man is using magic. It's like he's testing Piaet. The headmaster had a satisfied smile on his face. It feels so nice holding Piaet's hand. The girl looked up. Me too. I like it. A soft glow emanated from their joined hands, warm and harmless. Undine spoke again, that he doesn't seem to have any intention of attacking. Adrian's gaze was calm, that he's checking if she has magic. Since Piaet doesn't have magic anyway, there's no need to stop him. The scene shifted to the headmaster's office. The headmaster began to introduce Piaet. You saw just now, right? The first floor has the dining hall and various amenities. The second to fourth floors are classrooms. Adrian and the headmaster sat opposite each other, with steaming hot tea on the table. Piaet answered softly from the side, why yes. The headmaster said gently, this is Grandpa's room. You can come over whenever you miss Grandpa. Piaet's eyes sparkled. Really? Can I come again? Adrian held her teacup. The headmaster replied without hesitation, of course you can. Grandpa would rather you come every day. What do you think, Piaet? Piaet's cheeks flushed. She glanced quietly at Adrian. The headmaster saw her hesitation. Just do what Piaet wants to do. The Duke has instructed me to fulfill all your wishes. The girl's eyes were filled with starlight, as if she couldn't believe her ears. Is that really true? Adrian watched him quietly. He's completely won over the child's heart. The headmaster rested his chin on his clasped hands, a confident smile on his face. Adrian's thoughts flowed. Is he trying to win me over through this child? Adrian's thoughts turned. From the moment Piaet enrolls, this academy will have the backing and surveillance of the Affronte family. She had once thought it was strange for an expert-level mage to be a headmaster, but now he seemed impressively shrewd. Adrian put down her teacup, her movements elegant and calm. His speech is smooth, not like a typical blunt mage. She looked at the kind old man before her and came to a conclusion. I can entrust Piaet to him. An invisible command appeared in her mind. Second stage, arrogantly say, I can decide the curriculum, right? Adrian lifted her eyelids. I can decide the curriculum, can I? When is the theology class? The headmaster replied, today's theology class is in the afternoon. He turned to the girl. Piaet, are you interested in theology? Piaet sat in the large chair, looking particularly small. She tilted her head, her face full of confusion. What is theology? She answered in a small voice. Why, yes. Adrian's gaze softened. The word theology too difficult for Piaet. Adrian made a decision. Then we'll go to the theology class this afternoon. For now, let's go to... An invisible voice sounded again. Third stage, go to the magic class. Adrian's tone changed. Let's go to the magic class. She closed her eyes, suppressing the displeasure in her heart. The headmaster added with a smile, speaking of which, The basic magic class has suddenly become very popular recently. Even students without magic power attended. Adrian was thoughtful. Has a professor who is good at teaching arrived? That's rare among mages. Usually, mages are not good at teaching. In her memory, that impatient face surfaced. At least, the mage she knew was like that. Adrian looked at the headmaster. Is that professor very good at teaching? The headmaster's smile grew warmer, more than his skill. The headmaster continued, a new professor has recently arrived. He is a master. Your Grace, you will surely recognize his name when you hear it. Adrian's brow twitched slightly. That famous? The headmaster smiled confidently. Of course. He is a master, after all. However, this professor, his identity is one of the 3 heroes who defeated the Demon King with Adela Helsington. Adrian's pupils contracted sharply. Could it be Rustful? The ranks of mages are divided by proficiency. Mage, archmage, expert, and then master. At the end of the ladder is the living legend, the title of Grand Sage. Rustful Orwell. He is a master-level existence. Fire is his language, bearing the mark of a genius. At only 15 years old, his attack magic was rated as legendary. After mastering destruction magic to its peak, with the defeat of the Demon King, he chose a long period of silence. After 5 years of silence, he resumed his activities, starting with the Grand Plaza construction project. From then on, he focused on applied magic, especially in the field of architecture. Half of his inventions have been commercialized. Master Rustful holds 117 patents. His most famous invention is the sprinkler. The headmaster smiled with satisfaction. The Duke knows him too. Master Rustful is teaching the basic magic class. Adrian's expression froze. Wait. The mad dog Rustful is teaching children. A hint of suppression flashed in Adrian's eyes. I heard his personality is not suited for being a professor. This is truly unexpected. The headmaster laughed helplessly. Haha. Although he's a genius, Professor Rustful is indeed not good at teaching. His expression darkened. Be honest, it was more like I dragged him here by force. Fragments of memory surfaced. This is all my fault. It's all because of me. Rustful, do you intend to just throw your life away like this? The headmaster roared at the hunched figure. Get a grip. The living must go on living. He shook the body forcefully. How long are you going to waste your life in a place like this? Everyone is worried about you. The man on the floor weakly opened his eyes. What's that got to do with you? The headmaster was stunned. What? Rustful's eyes were empty. He repeated over and over. I said, what's that got to do with you? The headmaster was lost in memory, endless exhaustion on his face. Adrian listened quietly, without a word. That arrogant and self-centered bastard. The man who would laugh and tease his companions. I just couldn't leave him alone, could I? The group stood at the door. The headmaster's gaze fell into the room. He spoke softly. Chase, where has Professor Rustful gone? Chase turned, looking somewhat troubled. The professor hasn't arrived yet. An invisible pressure emanated from the headmaster. What did you just say? Say it again. The headmaster quickly forced a smile, trying to ease the atmosphere. Is he still in the laboratory? He tends to lose track of time when he's researching. Adrian just watched him quietly. The headmaster cleared his throat. I'll go to the laboratory myself. Don't you all make a fuss. Wait here. Adrian's gaze drifted into the distance, a hint of contemplation in her blue eyes. He conducting an experiment. In a laboratory, the focused atmosphere was almost terrifying. Rustful's entire world seemed to be confined to the lab bench in front of him. He sat at the table, his back motionless, like a stone statue. Once he started researching, he would completely forget about reality. Adela peeked out from behind a pillar, quietly observing him. She finally couldn't resist speaking, her voice carrying a familiar intimacy. Hey, Fel, let's go have a beer with everyone. Adela stretched, her posture relaxed and casual. But Rustful clutched his head in pain. Can't you see I'm researching? He growled in a low voice. Don't call me that again. Adela was unfazed, her tone slightly teasing. What are you sulking about now? You haven't even eaten, have you? Want me to bring you a lunchbox? Rustful turned his head away, his eyes full of stubbornness. Eat it yourself. Adela leaned against him with a smile. Then can I watch the experiment later? Rustful tightened his grip on the test tube, his voice cold and hard. No. You think I won't make you go to sleep again? She leaned in closer, her warm breath brushing past his ear. Fel, is it that embarrassing to let you sleep? Don't worry. You look like an angel even when you're asleep. Rustful's breath hitched. He squeezed the test tube, his gaze uncontrollably darting away. The The price of a moment's distraction was painful. The experimental container suddenly burst with a strong light, green liquid boiling and splashing everywhere. Trouble arrived unexpectedly. Adela apologized hastily. "We're heading to the tavern first." Rustful chased after her, shouting, "Hey, stop right there." She had stubbornly dragged Rustful out of the lab. Every time, he would be foaming at the mouth, yet he still followed her out. This was her memory. Rustful angrily grabbed his collar, but Adela burst out laughing. They argued endlessly, and then they became close. A perfectly ordinary day. The ripples of memory faded. The headmaster's voice came. "Excuse me for a moment. I'll go check Professor Rustful's laboratory." There was no hesitation in his blue eyes. The headmaster turned to Adrian. "Duke, could I ask you to wait a moment?" A voice sounded in her mind. "Annoy the professor. Come with me." Adrian then looked at Piaet, her voice softening. "Piaet, you and Luna stay in the lecture hall. You'll be seeing each other often in the future, so it's good to say hello in advance." Piaet's voice was very soft, with a hint of imperceptible anticipation. "Duke, can I go with you?" Adrian lowered his gaze. Piaet's small hand was gently tugging at the corner of his clothes. The touch was soft yet persistent. Adrian asked softly, "Are you afraid of those children?" Piaet's cheeks flushed. He hastily shook his head. No, that's not it. I'm just not very good at talking." A voice echoed in his mind, cold and emotionless. "The name Ifrint is wasted on you." Adrian's voice became distant. "What's your name?" Piaet lowered his head. His voice as soft as a mosquito's buzzed. "Pi Piaet." There wasn't a trace of warmth in Adrian's eyes. "Yes, that all." Piaet abruptly looked up, his eyes filled with panic. Piaet hurriedly raised his head. No, I'm Pi Piaet." The voice of Ifrint sounded again, speaking in a sarcastic tone. "You knew, and yet you still did that." Adrian's eyes softened. "Yes, you are Piaet Ifrint. Do you know what that means?" Piaet lowered his eyelids, a blush rising on his cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm not very sure." Adrian's hand gently rested on the top of Piaet's head. "It means that no one here dares to look down on you." His voice was gentle yet firm. You understand now." Piaet quietly felt it. A single tear silently slid from the corner of his eye. Adrian watched him with a smile in his eyes. "Yes, Your Grace." The headmaster's hand knocked on the laboratory door. "Professor Rustful, are you in there?" Silence from within the door. No one answered. The headmaster pounded on the door, his angry roar echoing in the hallway. "Professor Rustful. Hey, you bastard." The headmaster turned around awkwardly, forcing a smile. I thought he was in the lab." It seems he stepped out for a moment. "My apologies for the scene," he muttered under his breath. "That guy always disappears when he shouldn't. It's so embarrassing." A flicker of doubt crossed Adrian's eyes. Is he really conducting an experiment? Adrian knew that Rustful always set up a perfect protective barrier before his experiments. But at the very least, he should be able to hear a voice, call a spirit. Undine confirmed Rustful's condition. Undine flew out in response. "All right, Lien, I'll go in and see." The headmaster sighed at the side. "He's like this every year around this time. It seems he still hasn't recovered from that shock." Adrian turned around, a hint of concern in his gaze. "Professor Rustful, did something happen?" The headmaster remained silent, his expression grim. Adela Helsington. Was this around the time she passed away? Adrian's pupils contracted slightly. He looked up in shock. "What?" The headmaster lowered his eyes. His voice heavy. He was right beside her, yet he couldn't save her. He's never been able to forgive himself. We tried to pull him out of that room. Adrian's hands clenched silently. His lips pursed slightly. "That fool. It wasn't your fault." Painful memories flooded back like a tide. Rustful was curled up in the darkness. Adrian covered his face with his hands. He knew that feeling of powerlessness. Because the story was already written, you couldn't save him. "It wasn't your fault." The headmaster's voice broke the reverie. "If you're feeling troubled, perhaps you'd like to see another class." "Architecture class?" "Or architecture class will be fine." Undine's voice sounded. "Lien, Rustful has sealed the inside with a barrier. We could probably break it with magic, but that old man would find out. What should we do?" Adrian's gaze fell on the headmaster. A plan quietly formed. A cold voice echoed in his mind. With a contemptuous look, then head to the architecture class. Adrian stared at the tightly shut door. Choosing the magic class in the first place was the author's arrangement, bringing us to Rustful's lab, then suddenly changing the plan. This goes against the story's direction. A character from Part 1. Is there still a need for him to exist in part 2? The system's command became indisputable. Head to the architecture class with a contemptuous expression. Open the door. Adrian suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. The headmaster, alarmed, supported him. Your Grace. Adrian grabbed the headmaster's collar, his voice hoarse with pain. Professor Rustful is in danger. He looked up abruptly, his eyes filled with unprecedented urgency. Break that door down for me now. The headmaster, stunned by his intensity, stammered out a spell fireball. A ball of flame exploded with a roar, shattering the door. A wave of scorching heat rushed out. Adrian faced the scattering sparks, letting the ash fall on his face. He coughed up a bloody froth, but his gaze never wavered. The smoke and dust cleared. Behind the door was a deathly dark silence. His voice was as faint as a sigh. Rustful. Rustful was hanging from the ceiling, his feet dangling limply. Adrian stood in the broken doorframe, the dumbfounded headmaster behind him. He stared into that deep darkness. Sparks danced silently around him. Adrian looked up, his pupils suddenly constricting. That figure was suspended in midair. He blurted out, "Fell." Adrian rushed out, his high heels clacking urgently and heavily. He cried out hoarsely, "Rue Rustful." Adrian used all his strength to support his legs, as if trying to pull him back from the brink of death. He roared at the headmaster beside him. "What are you doing? Cut the rope." The headmaster, stunned by his forcefulness, hastily replied, "Yes." Yes. A coppery taste rose in his throat. Blood dripped from the corner of his lips. He urged in his mind, "Hurry." The rope snapped. Rustful fell heavily to the ground. He greedily gasped for air, letting out painful, choking coughs. The headmaster looked at his pained state, heartbroken and angry. "You idiot! You'll make yourself explode." Rustful's eyes were shattered, a mix of despair and grievance. An invisible force struck. Adrian waved his hand toward Rustful. Rustful's body was thrown backward. The headmaster hurried forward to support him. He shouted anxiously, "Your Grace, please calm down." The headmaster supported the swaying Rustful. He asked with concern, "Professor Rustful, are you all right?" Rustful kept his head down, not saying a word. Adrian sucked in a cold breath, a sharp pain in his chest. This was a him he had never seen before. The Rustful I knew was by no means a submissive person. The man who had once knelt before him was now so fragile. Was it betrayal, disappointment, or anger? He couldn't even tell. His body felt as if it were being dragged by invisible chains, plunging into the ice-cold depths of the sea. That seemingly indestructible Rustful would actually break down because of him. A warm current surged from his chest, strong enough to resist the system's punishment and keep him from fainting. He subconsciously clenched his hands as if he would shatter completely if he didn't hold onto something. Adrian looked down at Rustful on the floor, his voice devoid of any warmth. "How dare you do something like this in a place with children?" Adrian's questioning was cold. "Professor Rustful, is that right?" The headmaster quickly tried to defend him. "Your Grace, the professor is not that kind of person. There must be some misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Adrian sneered inwardly. "Are you saying my eyes are deceiving me?" The headmaster cowered under his glare. He lowered his voice and leaned close to Rustful's ear. "Quick, apologize to his Grace. Just this once." Rustful didn't move. He asked softly why. The headmaster reached out to check his face. "Are you all right?" "Let me see." Rustful slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me." The headmaster was angered by his action. "You little brat, I was being kind." His words stopped abruptly because he saw Rustful's cheek. It was smooth and flawless. "Huh? How are you fine?" There was clearly a wound here. Adrian watched quietly, not missing a single detail. A thought flashed through his mind. He moved the wound somewhere else. His gaze fell on his forearm. That scar was like a silent brand. Rustful kept his eyes down, hiding all his emotions. The headmaster sniffed the air and was suddenly alarmed. "Oh, you smell blood? Are you injured somewhere?" Rustful didn't look at him. His gaze fixed elsewhere. It was him. The headmaster snapped sharply. "Watch your words." He quickly added, "This is Adrian, Duke Ifrint." Adrian. Rustful repeated the name, as if it were a strange incantation. Adrian's eyes were cold. "The person before me is grieving my death. I can understand that." He clenched his fists. "Feeling guilty, I can tolerate that too. But not like this." That broken piece of rope swayed in his mind. "Who on earth is worth you giving up your life for me? You stupid bastard." He stood there, motionless, letting anger and heartache overwhelm him. What on earth was the author thinking? "I just don't get you anymore. Are you trying to save Rustful? or kill him. Or maybe you just wanted to test if I would still follow instructions in a crisis. But regardless, I saved him. His gaze fell on Rustful. So, the next step is to get him back on his feet. Adrian looked around. A complete mess. How pathetic. He remembered Rustful was a neat freak, unable to tolerate any mess. Especially in a magic experiment, a single speck of dust could change the outcome. He used to complain that this place was too dirty, and most importantly, too dark. Adrian walked to the window. He yanked open the heavy curtains. Sunlight instantly flooded in, illuminating every speck of dust. He looked at the two disheveled figures in the room and began to speak. Even a healthy person would get depressed staying in a place like this. The reason Rustful would let his lab get like this, would let himself go like this, is all because of me. He subconsciously raised a hand to shield his eyes. Too bright. A system notification sounded. Cover your mouth and nose with a handkerchief. Is this what Professor Rustful's laboratory is like? Adrian covered his mouth and nose with a handkerchief. He spoke coldly. Yes, this Professor Rustful's laboratory. The headmaster rubbed his hands, trying to explain. Well, you see, the professor has been particularly busy lately. I think he just hasn't had time to tidy up. Adrian's voice was flat, busy with experiments. The headmaster nodded repeatedly. Yes, that's right. Adrian's gaze swept over the messy room. That I always thought a clean environment was fundamental to magic experiments. It seems I was mistaken. He turned to the headmaster again. When did Professor Rustful start teaching here? The headmaster thought for a moment. About a little over a year ago. Adrian pressed on .so. In all this time, has the professor ever successfully conducted a single experiment? No. Is he even doing any research at all? The headmaster was at a loss for words. Adrian sighed. Why are you so obsessed with research? What more are you not satisfied with? He had once answered, it's not a matter of satisfaction. Once a mage stops researching, they begin to regress. And a mage who doesn't improve is as good as dead. He himself had said that. And yet now, the headmaster stammered out a defense. Experiments? He was just doing an experiment. Rustful slowly raised his head, his empty gaze fixed on him. The sunlight outlined Adrian's figure, making him look both familiar and strange in his eyes. Rustful sat slumped on the floor. He looked up at Adrian. Having met, Adrian's voice was devoid of warmth. Absurd. Rustful didn't look away. You called me Rustful. Adrian's eyes flickered slightly. A flash of panic crossed his face as he looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. Rustful caught that moment of hesitation, but you didn't deny it. Adrian's fingers tightened, gripping his own arm. His heartbeat was uncontrollable. He lowered his eyes, a silent wavering. The longer I stay by Rustful's side, the worse it is for me. In his eyes, this man seems to see through everything. He's a genius, able to find answers from the smallest clues. And I'm a complete fool. The moment I panic, I make mistakes. He pressed his knuckles to his lips, his teeth sinking slightly into his skin. Adrian turned that I should be going. His steps held a hint of finality. The headmaster behind him quickly spoke up that, Your Grace. He suddenly flinched, subconsciously covering his mouth. A short gasp, a coppery taste welled up. Blood stained the gaps between his fingers. He looked at his palm in horror. Blood, not here. The headmaster approached with concern. What's wrong, Your Grace? Adrian wiped the blood from his lips with the back of his hand. His voice was as hard as ice. This place makes me nauseous, headmaster. That will be all for today. He left decisively, his back radiating distance. I came with high expectations, but was greatly disappointed. With a professor of that level, this academy is nothing special. Rustful lowered his head in silence, bearing that sharp critique. Adrian didn't look back. The donation is suspended. The headmaster chased after him. Your Grace, this has nothing to do with him. Adrian turned his head sharply to, Oh, is that so? His voice was laced with ice. He raised his hand, the blood stain on his handkerchief glaring. Rustful sat quietly, his gaze lowered, silently enduring it all. The carriage moved slowly. Adrian leaned against the window, Piaet sitting quietly beside him. The light and shadows outside flowed past, reflecting on his pensive face. His fingertips gently caressed the pendant. Did my death really shock Rustful that much? As for me, I had no attachment to it. I was just following the ending that was already written. Of course, I was neither afraid nor in pain. At the thought of returning to my original world, I couldn't help but want to laugh. Because I held death in contempt, I foolishly thought others would too and became obsessed with it. Did Leonhardt also change because of me? And Owen? Is he alright? Piacier's voice broke the silence, tinged with a secret joy. Yo, your grace. I made friends. Piacier listed the names of his new friends, Rianton and Xanasir. They're both young masters. He's already made friends. As expected of the protagonist, Piacier's cheeks were slightly flushed. Rianton is tall and handsome. He said his dream is to become a master swordsman. Tall and handsome Rianton. That must be the warrior. His voice was full of excitement. Ten is very kind. When I first saw him, I thought he was an angel. Piacier cupped his cheeks, his expression becoming soft and hazy. Being around Tan makes me a little sleepy. It's probably because he's so reassuring. Adrian listened quietly. Kind of like an angel. Tan must be the cleric. That sleep-inducing sense of peace must come from holy power. Piacier's fingers twisted together. Xanasir, he doesn't talk much, but the first thing he did was give his seat to me. A blush rose on his face. Magic, I heard he can use it. Awakening magical powers at that age. Without a doubt, a promising mage. But why? Even the characters' classes are the same as in part 1. Copying that disastrous story. No wonder it failed. Adrian's expression turned cold. How remarkable. Piacier keenly sensed the change in atmosphere. Even the hair on his head seemed to droop. He looked up uneasily. Should I stop talking? Adrian looked at him. Piacier, as your sponsor, I have the right to oversee every aspect of your life. Understand, Piacier was completely confused, and Adrian's tone was indisputable that IT means you are to report to me what happens at the academy. Piacier repeated softly, re-report? Adrian simply said, continue. Piacier's eyes instantly lit up. Yes. The square was bustling with people. He quietly watched the scene outside the window. Young figures chatted under the sun. Everything was full of life. Luna looked out the window. Strange, those people don't look like protesters. Judging by their skills, they're from a construction guild. A flicker of excitement crossed her eyes. Does this mean the reconstruction of the Grand Plaza is really happening? Adrian's voice was soft. Reconstruction? Luna's face was filled with unconcealable longing for His Majesty's 56th anniversary celebration. I really want to see that grand spectacle with my own eyes. She clasped her hands together. And they're also going to build a statue for Lady Adela Helsington. Adria asked faintly. Has it already started? Luna nodded vigorously. Yes. It's going to be magnificent. Her voice was full of fantasy. It said that for the statue, they bought up all the top-grade gems. The light of countless gems and gold coins flashed in Adrian's eyes, but didn't stir the slightest ripple. Luna's voice was filled with awe. Rumor has it they're recruiting fire mages, specifically to melt the gold. They don't even have enough blacksmiths. How much gold must that be? She clasped her hands, full of anticipation that IT will surely be a wonder of the world. Adrian's voice was soft, more like a farce. Luna was stunned that my master. Adrian's eyes turned cold. The Noble Council meeting was just a few days ago, and they're already raising gold for the statue. Leonhardt's face appeared in his mind. So that meeting was meaningless from the start. A system notification sounded, frowned, and tapped the carriage wall. Adrian raised his finger, his knuckles rapping against the carriage wall again and again. The carriage slowly came to a stop. Luna came forward. Master, let me escort you. Adrian raised a hand to stop her. No need. You and Piacier stay in the carriage. He walked alone toward the plaza, toward the group of murmuring workers. The low murmur of the crowd didn't stop him. Instead, they parted to make way for his appearance. Adrian's gaze went past the crowd toward the top of the steps. The knights on the steps were discussing something. He's here. The man in the lead turned around, his gaze meeting his from afar. Leonhardt. The crowd's discussion buzzed. Undine circled by his ear. Why is Leonhardt here? Adrian's eyes turned cold. His high heels made a crisp sound on the stone slabs. Step by step, he walked toward him without hesitation. He raised his eyes, his calm gaze meeting his. Adrian stopped. Duke Ifrit. The two stood facing each other. Silence spread between them. Adrian crossed his arms, building an invisible wall. Leonhardt turned his face slightly, a hint of impatience in his tone. I thought I made myself clear last time. Or did you simply not understand? A system notification sounded. He slowly lifted his chin. I heard you loud and clear, Your Highness. His gaze was unwavering that I heard you very clearly. But I cannot obey, because I have something I must say to you. If you could give me a moment of your time, I would be very grateful. Leon Hart's voice was cold. I don't have time. Adrian didn't back down. I believe you have something you want to say to me as well. Leon Hart immediately denied it. I do not. This is also the third time I've said, I don't have time. His face darkened. The air around them seemed to freeze. What? Adrian's anger was instantly ignited. The background turned a shade of crimson. His words shot out like a machine gun. That I understand you don't want to talk to the woman who's been clinging to you for 12 years. But that's not my fault. Invisible sparks flew between the two. The atmosphere was so tense it felt like it could explode at any moment. Adrian, however, calmed down. All right, Your Highness. If you wish, I'll say it right here. His gaze was sharp, without a trace of emotion. His voice echoed across the plaza. I heard the construction of the statue has been approved. I'm quite certain I voted against it. What exactly is going on? Leon Hart watched his turning back. Oh, you're here to threaten me? Adrian's expression softened, and his tone followed suit. That of course not. I have no intention of interfering with your plans, Your Highness. I am simply requesting that you cancel the construction of the statue. Leon Hart cut him off coldly. Don't waste my time. Leave at once. The gentle mask shattered in an instant. His smile became stiff. A flash of anger crossed his eyes. A system notification sounded in his mind. Adrian let out a soft laugh. Then may I go back and file a formal protest? He straightened his back, hands on his hips, his posture tinged with mockery at a protest that the royal family ignored a formal objection cast by a duke in the noble council. Leon Hart looked away, his tone full of annoyance. Be my guest. Just don't do it in front of me. His coldness completely shattered his composure, Your Highness. His voice held a slight tremble. A red command box popped up. He shook his head in pity. Oh, you really think that by doing this, you can erase your guilt for failing to protect Adela Helsington? The thought froze him in place. Once the words were formed, only their irreversible weight remained. That sentence was like an invisible knife, twisting cruelly in his already scarred wound. Cold red text appeared before his eyes. Even if he shouts, he won't hear it. He is destined to only see a retreating back. A command so smug it was impossible to refuse. Damn it. Adrian's knuckles turned white. This is too cruel. He looked at Leon Hart. The face before him overlapped with a distant moment in his memory. That pained face. A certain barrier in his heart shattered with a crisp sound. He finally saw it. He saw it with perfect clarity. A single tear fell from those empty eyes. A silent scream. Adela. No, Adela, please come back. The woman's back was resolute, swallowed by darkness and flames. He reached out, but only grasped at nothingness. The sharp blade of memory pierced through reality. The entire world collapsed in his eyes, twisting and spinning. A voice cut through the pain. That's enough. Duke different. Adrian was enveloped in a blue light. Red text flashed before his eyes. Build the statue. Ultimately, it's because of his guilt. The thought made him dizzy. His heart felt as if it were being squeezed tightly. Wait. Adrian staggered. Leon Hart looked at him. Why have you stopped talking? Leon Hart turned his face, a cold smile on his lips. Don't come any closer. This is starting to look like I'm threatening a duke. Whispers rose from the crowd. His Grace the Duke seems to have suddenly fallen ill. How absurd. A ringing in his ears. Adrian gasped sharply. Leon Hart looked at him, confused. Just like Rustful. He still hasn't gotten over my death. No, this isn't right. Adrian covered his mouth tightly. I'll talk to you later. He couldn't say it. A pain grunt. Blood welled up from his lips, staining his snow-white glove. Leon Hart's pupils shrank. Duke, he called out urgently. Damn it. Hart. Adrian couldn't breathe. Blood dripped continuously. Leon Hart froze. His world seemed to shift into slow motion. Duke different. He collapsed. What's wrong with him? He instinctively rushed over and caught him. He held him in his arms. The physical contact so real. Pull yourself together. His words caught in his throat. A glaring streak of red slid from the corner of his lips. He cursed under his breath. Damn it. His hands trembled helplessly. Why did my body move first? Why did I touch this woman? His mind was in chaos. Viaet appeared at his side. Shall I drop him? His voice was a low whisper in Leon Hart's ear. Your Highness, there are too many eyes on us here. Leon Hart's response was devoid of any emotion. Essel continued his analysis. Putting aside your hostility toward the Duke, leaving an unconscious woman here would be seen as a problem with your character. When he wakes up, the Duke will use this to his advantage. The surrounding gazes were like needles. Leonhardt held the unconscious Adrian, with Essel standing by. The scene was at a stalemate. No matter what he did, rumors would spread immediately. The reconstruction of the Grand Plaza was the centerpiece of the Emperor's birthday celebration. He was in charge of such a crucial task. The other princes were watching eagerly. They were looking for any excuse to delay the project's progress. He couldn't give them any more leverage. Leonhardt let out a soft grunt. Then what should I do? He covered his mouth with his hand in frustration, caught in a dilemma. Essel's voice was soft. Let's use the Duke this time. There's no harm in showing a friendly gesture. Escort him back to his residence. Leonhardt turned his head in disbelief at me. Essel's tone was indisputable. Of course, Your Highness. You must go personally. Leonhardt gritted his teeth. Damn it. Essel's voice remained calm. Please don't be so agitated. He lay there quietly, a trace of blood still on his lips. Is he really unconscious? Leonhardt scrutinized his face. This doesn't look like an act. It's too absurd. How could he suddenly collapse and cough up blood while we were just talking? He had once grabbed him by the throat. Is this his revenge for my actions last time? If so, this is truly the best form of revenge. Now I have to personally deliver him back to his residence. With my own hands, he lifted him into his arms. His body was surprisingly light. His long golden braid hung over his arm like a silent waterfall. Leonhardt's jaw was tight, his gaze heavy as he looked forward. We're going to the Ifrit residence. Immediately, the Ifrit residence was silent under the starry sky. Leonhardt sat by the bed. Why on earth did he suddenly collapse? The question spun in his mind. His brow was furrowed with fatigue and a lingering confusion. Essel's voice echoed in his ear. Please leave the Ifrit residence as late as possible. It would be even better if you could stay the night. He looked at his pale face. Is it really because he's sick? No, there must be a political motive behind this. Moonlight filtered through the ornate curtains, casting a hazy glow. Since I'm already here, I should at least stay until midnight. His gaze deepened. Duke, whatever your intentions are, they are certainly not for my benefit. In that case, I will use you as well. His eyes turned cold. A thought formed in his mind. A scandal might be better right now. Invisible chains would bind them tightly together. I will sever the thread between the Duke and the first prince with my own hands. He lay quietly, his breathing light, like a feather in the moonlight. Leona, a broken syllable slipped unconsciously from his lips. His sleeping face was pale and peaceful. Golden hair was spread across the dark pillow. Leona. Leonhardt's pupils suddenly constricted. The air seemed to freeze. Leona? Did Adrian just say Leona? He shot to his feet. Impossible. His heart skipped a beat. That name was a term of endearment that belonged only to Adela. His hand rested on the edge of the bed, his fingertips trembling slightly. He leaned down, very close to him. You're not awake, are you? His breath held a hint of inquiry. An unconscious murmur. He turned over in his sleep. He froze. Why? His sleepy murmur was soft and broken. Leonhardt held his breath, not daring to disturb this moment of peace. Why? Stop. He frowned slightly. Is it just nonsense? He tried to convince himself, but he couldn't look away. Just then his eyes opened. A clear blue reflected his image. His hand slowly rose, gently grabbing his collar. Leona. That name struck him like a bolt of lightning. His voice held a hint of a lazy smile. Does it still hurt? Leonhardt's heart skipped a beat. The distance between them was so close. His hand was still on his shoulder, the warmth beneath his palm familiar yet strange. A strange sense of déjà vu. Two faces overlapped in his mind. Why do I always feel Adela's shadow on Adrian? He held his forehead. His thoughts were in chaos. Duke, how do you know that name? Duke. He gripped Adrian's shoulder. Your Highness. Adrian's voice was tinged with alarm. Leonhardt took a step closer, his tone carrying an undeniable command. Answer me. How do you know the name Leona? Who did you hear it from? Did you call in the entire expedition team to investigate me? Leonhardt's hand tightened. He cried out in pain. Let go of me. He released his grip, staggering back. Adrian rubbed his arm. Why would I investigate, Your Highness? His expression was innocent, as if he had been greatly wronged. He looked at him, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Such an innocent expression. I was almost fooled. In our childhood, I was ignorant and trusted Adrian without reservation. But now, he would not repeat such foolishness. Never. Adrian adjusted his collar and sat back on a bed. More importantly, why are you in my bedroom? Leonhardt crossed his arms. Why are you asking me? I wasn't the one who collapsed in front of everyone. It was you, Your Grace. Adrian held his forehead. All right. I fainted. Leonhardt looked at him. Yes. Oh, it wasn't on purpose. His voice held a hint of scrutiny. Not long ago, he sent assassins to force me out of the succession race. Naturally, I can't help but be suspicious. Leonhardt stood in the center of the room. Adrian sat on the edge of the bed. A distance separated them, filled with a distrustful silence. Leonhardt broke the silence. Does it still hurt? My coat was covered in blood. Adrian instinctively apologized. That I'm sorry, Your Highness. I'll have it cleaned. Leonhardt cut him off. Don't worry. I've already thrown it away. Adrian looked around. I believe I had companions with me. Where are they now? Leonhardt replied. You were covered in blood at the time. I had them leave first. We came in a different carriage. Adrian breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Thank you for your consideration. He stood up. I was unwell earlier. My apologies for my rudeness. Leonhardt asked, what were you doing at the main plaza? Adrian looked at him. I was passing by and saw Your Highness, so I went to discuss the construction matters. There was no other reason. His tone held a hint of urgency. I didn't go to the plaza to see Your Highness. I didn't even know you would be there. It was truly just a coincidence. I hope you don't misunderstand. A coincidence. Leonhardt's voice was soft. Leonhardt turned his face away. If the Duke says so, then so be it. The longer this conversation drags on, the worse we'll both feel. So I'll be brief. Adrian's fingers tightened, clutching the gem on his chest. Please cancel the production of the statue. Of course, I won't back down. But if you do that, I will no longer stand in Your Highness's way. I can even help ensure the construction finishes smoothly. Leonhardt turned around. I have no such thoughts. Adrian promised eagerly. I will support you in becoming the crown prince. I promise. Leonhardt was getting impatient. Didn't I already say? I handle my own affairs. Adrian stood up. Your Highness, if you make an enemy of me, you will be in trouble. He let out a soft laugh. When were you not an enemy? You're saying strange things again. A flicker of exhaustion crossed Adrian's eyes. He clutched his chest, as if suppressing something. The midnight bells chimed in the distance, echoing one after another in the silent room. It's finally midnight. I should be heading back. Leonhardt turned to leave. Adrian watched his back. Adela Helsington. Would she really like something like this? Leonhardt stopped in his tracks. He turned back, his eyes becoming dangerous and cold. A golden statue modeled after her. If it were me, I would never. Adrian's words were cut off by a muffled grunt. His hand suddenly tightened, his knuckles turning white from the force. The thread of his reason snapped completely at that moment. He leaned down and gripped his shoulders, his breath almost on his face. What do you know about Adela? Every word was like shattered ice. Leonhardt pushed Adrian back, leaning forward, his shadow enveloping him. He whispered, don't pretend you know everything. It's just hearsay. Adrian's gaze didn't waver. His blue eyes were incredibly calm. Don't feel guilty for Adela's death. His words were like a needle piercing the silence. It wasn't Your Highness's fault. Leonhardt froze. I should tell him to shut up, but his lips wouldn't open. His fingertips had a will of their own, gently brushing through his golden hair. A tremor ran through the air. He stared at him as if seeing him for the first time. He seems like a different person. The sincere apology in his eyes made him start to doubt himself. Adrian's shoulders trembled slightly. A flicker of wavering passed through his blue eyes. A system notification sounded. All right, I will create a perfect plan. You'll definitely change your mind after seeing it. Leonhardt was confused. Where's he looking? His thoughts paused. This feeling, it's like it's happened before. Adrian raised a hand to cover his face, his voice stiff through his fingers. Your Highness, let's negotiate. I will bring a perfect proposal for the plaza's reconstruction. Leonhardt's voice was skeptical. You'll do it yourself? Adrian lowered his hand, his eyes firm. Yes, I'll do it myself. He met his gaze. Oh, please. Make a concession as well, Your Highness. Leonhardt was silent. Adrian crossed his arms, waiting quietly. The Duke is not someone who negotiates like this. Leonhardt recalled his past. His father was royalty, his mother a duchess. He inherited the title upon coming of age, his power second only to the emperor, a being who needed to bow to no one. He looked at the Adrian before him, but now he was suddenly so reasonable. Leonhardt's eyes sharpened. I'll keep it by my side and see what he's really plotting. He resolved inwardly, whatever it is, you won't get your way, Duke. Leonhardt looked at him and suddenly spoke. All right. Adrian looked up. Yes. Leonhardt turned without looking back. Prepare the proposal, Duke. He paused at the door. His figure was elongated by the shadowed. "I'll give you 5 days." The heavy door closed behind him. The sound seemed to drain all the strength from his body. Adrian collapsed onto the bed. His face held an unprecedented fury. The confident words from just moments ago floated before his eyes. He roared at the system. "Are you crazy? Who told you to act on your own?" Adrian clutched his head, screaming in despair that "I'm so sick of these missions." The trauma of being an architecture student came rushing back. Memories flooded his mind. Back in the architecture student's classroom, the professor's voice echoed that an architectural plan depends on its purpose, usability, cost-effectiveness, and convenience. He pushed up his glasses. Behind the lenses, disappointment. "You all keep submitting these flashy, impractical designs. No matter the type of building, you favor Renaissance or Gothic styles just for the sake of grandeur and splendor." The past him sat at his computer, silently listening as the professor's critique continued. "The drawings are deliberately complicated, making them impossible to understand." He frowned. How harsh. He adjusted his glasses, his voice devoid of any warmth. "The competitions are full of this kind of work. All the same, it's making my eyes rot." Adrian let out a soft sigh, the weight of memory on his shoulders. "I thought Leon Hart would reject the proposal. Do the architectural laws I know even apply here?" A ball of blue light appeared out of thin air. Undine circled cheerfully, saying in a crisp voice, "Even though you've switched bodies, your habits haven't changed." Adrian was confused. "What habits of mine?" Undine danced beside him. "You talk to yourself a lot." Undine continued to explain. "Sometimes you just stare into space. It was weird at first, but I've gotten used to it." A blush rose on Adrian's cheeks. "You saw all of that?" Undine's tone was full of concern. By the way, what's with Leon Hart? Being so harsh to a sick person is too much." "Adrian, you were spitting blood. How could he push you in that situation?" Adrian held out his palm, and Undine gently landed on it. "That I'm fine now. Don't worry. Besides, Leon Hart doesn't know anything." Undine's voice became urgent. "Adrian, be honest. If Leon Hart found out you were Adela, he would definitely be different." Adrian lowered his eyelids, his golden hair hiding his expression. Only silence remained in the air. He slowly raised his head, his eyes incredibly determined that, he wouldn't. Undine couldn't understand. Why? Did the soul transfer magic fail? "I know you're lying." Adrian waved his hands, his voice a little flustered. "What are you talking about? That's not a lie." Undine turned her head away. "Fine then. I'll wait until Adrian is willing to confess. Even married couples have secrets." Undine suddenly remembered something. "But if Adrian's identity must never be revealed, I have to shut his mouth first." A memory surfaced. When Adrian was asleep, he had called out his name in a dream. He was standing right by the bed. Undine's words were like a clap of thunder. He heard everything. The color drained from Adrian's face. What? His mind raced. Did he have my background investigated? Because I investigated Adela, he thinks I'm imitating her. A cold suspicion formed in his mind. He misunderstood. He thinks I'm deliberately imitating Adela. That's why he accepted the proposal. The image of that man tearing up his hard work. He finally understood. Leon Hart is going to humiliate me in public. He foresaw his cold gaze. No matter how innovative his plan was, Leon Hart wouldn't even look at it. He would reject it again and again until the statue was completed. The phantom of Professor Leon Hart appeared, the man known as the Devil. His voice echoed in his ears. I can only revise the plan over and over until he nods. Countless drawings were born in his hands. He let out a soft laugh that "You've got to be kidding me." A new kind of determination solidified in his heart. He began to formulate the perfect plan, an unquenchable light burning in his eyes. "You think I'll let you manipulate me?" The anger in his eyes was about to overflow. His blue pupils reflected his resolve. "Just you wait." "Damn author." Adrian sighed, a soft sound escaping his lips. The magnificent estate stood silently in the distance. Adrian was slumped over the desk, the manuscript before him showing no progress. It had been 2 full days. This was an event where magic replaced science. The shackles of time and money were easily broken by magic. Because of this, he had once freely tried everything he could imagine, never considering the constraints of reality. Adrian had once conceived a perfect plan. He crossed his legs, his eyes full of confidence. Now, he looked at the materials before him. So many unfamiliar things. These conceptual construction methods, What kind of magic would be needed to realize them? He couldn't even begin to judge. Undine, if we used the magic of the spirits, would there be a way? The water spirit Undine was lying on a manuscript. She tilted her little head. I'm not too sure either. Instead of worrying by yourself, why not ask Sylph? Adrian looked up Sylph. Undine floated in the air. Yeah, Sylph knows a lot. Besides, if it's always just me, the other spirits will feel left out. Adrian sweated slightly. That's true. He stood up and walked to the front of the desk. A dazzling light bloomed from around him. He extended his hands, energy gathering in his palms. He called out softly in his heart, Sylph. A pure white figure appeared in the light, the gentle wind element dancing along. The fire spirit salamander appeared in flames. The earth spirit gnomes peeked out from between green shades. The wind spirit Sylph circled him. Adela, you're really alive. We were so sad you only summoned us now. Adrian looked at him gently. Sorry, Sylph. Salamander's question was burning with passion. If Adela summoned you, you should have told us. You idiot. Undine retorted with a stream of water. Idiot. It was Lien who told me to keep it a secret. Salamander jumped onto Adrian's shoulder. Why do you keep calling him Lien? And what's with your body? Undine happily raised her hand. I'll explain that. Undine explained what happened. Salamander looked reluctant. So, in the end, you called us here for something this boring? Sylph's voice sounded a little dejected. Calling us only when you need us makes one a bit sad. Even though our existence is to help you. Still, Undine's voice held a trace of confusion. I already told you it was Lien, but why did you build this? Wouldn't it be simpler to draw water from the nearby lake? Adrian pressed his forehead, looking exhausted. I got nothing out of it. A knock came from the door. Adrian answered, come in. An attendant pushed open the door. Your Grace the Duke, Dean Franklin, and Professor Rustful are here to see you. Dean Franklin bowed slightly. Thank you for making time for us out of your busy schedule, even though we did not make an appointment. Professor Rustful, beside him, just stood there expressionlessly without a word. The dean cleared his throat. As I mentioned before, Professor Rustful is very shy around strangers. I brought him to apologize to you. The spirits whispered in Adrian's ear, audible only to him, oh my God, why does Lord Rustful look like that? Like a shut-in who was just let out after being locked up for 3 years. And this is him on a good day. The last time I saw him, I thought he was a corpse. Salamander looked gloomy. I don't even want to get close. Gnome, what do you think? Adrian scoffed lightly. What a mess. Professor Rustful's appearance was much better than last time. Adrian spoke. What is it? The dean explained. We came to explain the incident at the academy and to formally apologize. After an internal investigation by the academy, it was confirmed that Professor Rustful was conducting an experiment at the time. Adrian let out a cold snort. Therefore, Professor Rustful will not be dismissed from the academy. Adrian's gaze sharpened. Even if I withdraw my donation. Dean Franklin's expression was sincere. We completely understand that this incident has made you disappointed in the academy. But his tone was firm. Our decision will not change. Adrian leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. You came all this way just to tell me that. The dean explained, we must properly apologize for what needs to be apologized for, and then resolve the issue. Adrian slowly let out a breath. So it wasn't just the dean. The entire academy intended to protect Rustful, even if it meant making an enemy of me. A smile touched his lips. That I like it. He lowered his eyelids, his expression softening. I was planning to donate anyway. Might as well go with the flow. Adrian looked up. Let's not mention that matter again. The dean, relieved, said, thank you. The dean continued to explain. This may sound like an excuse, but Professor Rustful truly didn't expect anyone to walk into his experiment. Adrian said lightly, I've heard that's how mages are when they're focused. The dean clasped his hands, his expression excited. Ah, you understand? Yes, that's precisely the problem with mages. Professor Rustful has also learned a lot from this. He turned to the person beside him. Isn't that right, Professor Rustful? Rustful showed no reaction. An awkward silence fell. The dean lowered his voice. Professor Rustful, a few days ago, when I said I was coming to visit, you were the one who insisted on coming along, weren't you? Weren't you planning to apologize in person? Right? The dean's face fell. That I'm sorry. Professor Rustful extended his hand. Adrian stared at the hand. Frankly, who asked for forgiveness with a handshake? Undine screamed in his mind. You're not his friend. Adrian's hand paused slightly. Sylph's voice rang out, Lien. Rustful's mana is moving. If you take his hand, he'll detect your mana. Mana flowed silently around Lustful. Salamander's voice was full of disdain. Human mages are so cunning, checking the mana of everyone they meet for the first time. It's a typical habit of mages. Adrian took the hand. A purple magic circle unfolded between them. So that's why I let the Dean get away with it when he secretly checked Piaet's mana last time. The Dean yanked Lustful back. Are you crazy? How could you shake his hand? Lustful looked bewildered. What? Does the Duke not have hands? Shut up. A system notification sounded, announcing arrogantly, out of respect for the Dean's sincerity, the donation will proceed as planned. He spoke calmly. The donation will proceed as usual. The Dean's eyes sparkled. You are truly magnanimous. But his tone suddenly changed. However, Your Grace, could you put that in writing? Adrian thought to himself, what a meticulous old man. But what on earth was Lustful looking at? His gaze was fixed on a corner of the room, focused and deep.